Going to the air again. That pass is high. Oh, what a one-handed grab by Pearsall. And then he took a pop at the 30-yard line.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
There's a slant on first down. Catch made by Coleman. Deion Coleman, his first touchdown as a Seminole.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Youngblood, the man in motion. Simon feels the pressure. Hit as he throws. Intercepted. There he is, Cooper DeJean. And he's got some space in front. DeJean still on his feet across the 25. DeJean is going to take it for a pick six.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Penix looks the other direction down the seam. It's intercepted by Sanders-Still. Mikey Sanders-Still has a couple of blockers. A convoy. Michigan set up inside the 10.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
WKU will mix up tempos. Reed throws on the run, complete sideline, missed tackle, and this could be big. Hilltopper's on the way. It's Malachi Corley. Goodbye. 70-yard house call.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Play action, McMahon looking to fire to the end zone. McCaffrey on the run. Touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Tuesday afternoon, 365 Sports, as we are almost every day inside the studio, just off of I-35 in Waco. Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina to my left, Jack McKenzie and Garrett Ross today in the mothership as well. I'm David Smoak. We appreciate your time. If you wouldn't mind, if you're on right now and if you're in the on the YouTube channel in the chat room, hit like or subscribe. We would appreciate that whenever you can. We're going to have news with a couple of different columnists, Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports and then also Justin Williams, theathletic.com, on the latest part of college football about the Big Ten and the SEC trying to put together a revenue sharing plan that basically, if they do, everybody else will follow along or else. That coming up in just a moment with more details and feedback from you. Our Twitter account, which was down for a while, and we have several of them, at SicEm365. This was shut down for a while, just the tweaks and whatever else of Twitter, is back up. This is what we use. There is also 365 Sports YT for the YouTube channel. There's also at SicEm365 _ so there are a lot of different Twitter accounts along with ours personally, but this one is now back up and running.
And I'd like to thank my direct call to Elon Musk to get this done. I just called him up and said, listen, buddy, I know that you're working on the fact that the Cybertruck is getting recalled, but we really need that Twitter account back. So,
well, nicely done. Yeah,
it's back up and running. So we have that one. We appreciate that one being fixed. I got suspended when I was in Indianapolis because I did the old stick your head in the tank of gasoline and light it with a match. Somebody reported me. This was when I was at the NCAA tournament in Indianapolis. I was shut down for about a half a day. That was probably the best half a day I've had in a long, long time. Couple of transfer notes, one in football and then one in basketball. And then we get to the revenue sharing plan, maybe with both the Big Ten and the SEC. Zachary Franklin, heck of a player for Jeff Traylor at UTSA, transferred to Ole Miss. He is back in the transfer portal. I saw, by the way, speaking of UTSA, former UT defensive back Terrence Brooks, who entered the portal. He was visiting UTSA, still not sure if he's made his decision yet where he goes.
Zachary Franklin's kind of an interesting one because he was one of the most sought-after players in the transfer portal a year ago. Went to Ole Miss. He played in 4 games. I'm not sure his exact stats, but he maintained his red shirt. So he has one more year to play. I don't know how much of that was injuries or just not a fit, and then he gets through spring and decides he's going to transfer again. And look, Ole Miss has made their bones and their whole not their whole roster, but a great deal of their roster out of the transfer portal. And they're going for it, and apparently Zachary Franklin feels like he should be somewhere else right now, and I'm curious to see where that is because, again, Ole Miss was one of many top-level programs that recruited him a year ago, and he didn't really play, so I wonder if he's going to go back down to a different level, I'd say back down, like, is he going to go to a G5 team, or is there, a Power 4 team that's out there that wants him?
He had 174 catches, Craig, in the 2 years prior to 23 for 2,200 yards. And also 27 touchdowns. And last year, 4 catches, 38 yards, and a score.
Yeah, I mean, Paul said he didn't know what he did. He didn't do much. He didn't miss much. 4 catches, 38 yards, and a touchdown. His totals there. He was hurt early on and just lost his spot in the rotation and as far as getting significant playing time. So not what he planned on, obviously. I bet he got a nice bag from Ole Miss, though, to help make that a little bit of an easier situation overall. And that was part of him going to Ole Miss, and I'm sure part of just being on a bigger platform and all that stuff. But it didn't work out, and now I think a very intriguing player is in the portal. And it goes to show you the grass isn't always greener, but the money is. I think in this case that rings true as far as the money goes, but the playing time and the impact and the everything that comes with actually being a football player beyond the getting paid part nowadays, none of that resonated in Oxford for Zachary Franklin. So, I think he's a guy who's got a good bit of ability and should be an attractive player out there for somebody to go in and swoop up. He had monster years prior to going to Ole Miss. I think that's one of those guys that Jeff Traylor certainly was not happy to lose, but it's understandable when you have 2,200 yards and nearly 30 touchdowns in 2 years. You can see why he was getting some attention and why schools like Ole Miss came calling for him. So, to go from 93 catches to 4, from 1,100 yards to 38, from 15 touchdowns to 1. He's definitely got more than what we've seen here lately. So somebody will definitely want to try and get that 21 and 22 version of Zachary Franklin back, and he'll probably get paid again for just those talents. Good for him.
A&M's been trying to get a wide receiver. I wonder if they kick the tires on Zachary Franklin.
I mean,
Sure.
I don't know why anybody that may have recruited him. He's from Cedar Hill High School, so a lot of the schools around the country know Cedar Hill with the talent that they have. If you need a wide receiver or not, you would think, barring something that's injury that may not mean he's 100%. But if you're Baylor, A&M, UTSA, maybe they go back after him. Who knows what Jeff Traylor does, but Zachary Franklin is available. He entered the transfer portal, was electric down in San Antonio with the Roadrunners and Frank Harris for a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, we're winding down the portal, so to speak, as far as the entries, the entries into it, but certainly the activity's not going to stop. And, I would think he's getting a lot of messages. I don't know anything about off the field or won't even speculate as far as that goes, but there's nothing that I'm aware of is the point. So, beyond that, he had his knee injured, and I don't think that was something that, is life or death or like you'll never play football again. So, based on all that, I think he's good to go. Maybe, there's still some work to do on that injury. I'm not quite sure on that, but that's for the schools to go and flesh out and find out. And if he's good, then he'll be on a roster most certainly and be on a pretty prominent one, I would think.
All right. Also, this note in basketball, Scott Drew and Baylor were very much interested in Jonas Adu from Kentucky. Tennessee, part of that really good, highly ranked team that Tennessee had throughout the year with Rick Barnes. Baylor was in the mix. I thought that for the most part, everyone thought this might be a lock. It's not. Arkansas, John Calipari and company end up getting him, and a nice pickup for the new head coach at Arkansas because he can recruit. He gets him to Arkansas. Baylor now will have to work on a different plan because he's not available. 11.7 rebounds, 2 blocks per game. Last season, a 6'11 junior is going to Arkansas.
Yeah, they the guy from Rutgers is still out there. So that's someone I think they might kick the tires on. There's others. Look, Musa Cisse could be at his fourth school at Baylor. He's looking for somewhere to go, and he was a very strong player in the post. He's a defensive presence everywhere he goes. I'm sure they've got a plan B. But John Calipari there at Arkansas, with new life, it's kind of an interesting animal to throw out there into the mix here, especially given the fact that, the first press conference is like they asked him to meet with a team. He's like, what team? There is no team right now. Yeah. So he's got to go get one, and he has to use the portal more than he has before. Now, look, his foray into the portal worked out really well when he got Oscar Tshiebwe. They just didn't go very deep. That was a great pickup for them for 2 years as far as the regular season. The postseason's different, and that's why
his main thing, though, are the blue chip basketball players.
But he's got to fill the roster with other guys before he gets into high school, because that's what's more important. It's the new way. A
lot of people wanted Brandon Garrison from Oklahoma State. All-American, former McDonald's All-American. He has committed to Mark Pope in Kentucky. That was a big man out there that a lot of people were looking at. That just popped. Joe tipped him with that particular story.
Yeah, and that's disappointing for Scott Drew and company. That was hopefully the next domino to drop, along with Jeremy Roach, and we know Roach is already in the fold, so those grand plans already starting to crack a little bit, but understandable that he wanted to go play for Calipari. I mean, I could see the appeal there and all that comes with that. Gets to stay in the SEC. I imagine is getting a nice paycheck and, get to be a part of what they're trying to turn around there in Fayetteville. But would have been great to see him in green and gold. That won't be the case. So on to the next one. And as you just mentioned there, who did you just mention there a second ago?
Brandon Garrison.
Yeah, Brandon Garrison. What was his story?
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State. Yeah, seems like a pretty good pickup there out of the portal.
Big dude from Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
New coach there, of course.
What was interesting is that apparently I saw Evan Maya say of like Kentucky's transfers that are coming in, like I think all of or nearly all of them are like top 20 defensive guys per whatever his analytical chart is, which is interesting because it's not like BYU was known for defense, right? I mean, they were known for
shooting threes,
and if they weren't making them, then it was a tough night at the office. And if they were, then it was a great night at the office. But they weren't necessarily known for defense. But I thought that was just an interesting note of the fact that Mark Pope is pulling in guys, but he's also pulling in some pretty good defenders. So that's just kind of where their roster's building up right now.
He didn't score a lot, 8 points, 5 rebounds, but again, an inside presence. He's a 6'11 freshman. Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas were also the ones that Brandon Garrison was looking at. He's decided to play for Mark Pope and also Kentucky. I've seen some notes about what Pope has done showing up himself, not an assistant or some like rental car company or whatever. He has been showing up almost every time to look at people when they get on the ground at the Kentucky Lexington Airport, wherever it might be. And he is there. He's made a presence there, done a great job there. Mark Pope in Kentucky get Brandon Garrison from Oklahoma State. So Baylor needs a guy inside, right? Or do they still have what they need as long as they don't have any more attrition?
I don't think they do because, Jalen Bridges is gone. Josh Ojanwa is coming back, but they've lost Caleb Lohner, who's not really inside.
Ojanwa, they got to be careful with him now. You wonder if all the other interest they've had in other people was like making him wonder, okay, am I a part of this deal?
Yeah, but right now he's the starter, right? And so, and look, he was the backup a year ago. But yeah, they've got to do something. They will. I mean, like I'm not worried about that. But when you look at who's out there, it's hard to know because it's not like some of these visits are announced and then some of them, we'll just find out like, hey, by the way, Baylor, signed this guy. You're like, oh, I didn't know he came here. It's just how it is. So
there might be somebody that just pops open and it could even be attrition themselves. All right, so Dennis Dodd's going to join us in about 10 minutes. The story that a lot of the national outlets the last 24 hours has been this one. the SEC and the Big Ten developing plan to share revenue with players in potential landmark change to college athletics. Now, we've seen this written, and we've seen where this has kind of become more and more of the story, revenue sharing. Mack Rhodes told us this like a month and a half ago, that we are headed to revenue sharing. We've heard others say that as well, headed to revenue sharing. So this is part of the SEC and the Big Ten trying to put together something. And what does this then mean? That everybody else follows their lead? And how do you feel like revenue sharing will work across the board?
I think, when the SEC and Big Ten do something, everybody else is going to have to find a way to follow suit. The tricky part about this is they're going to have more revenue to share. So, how do you get you start doing those things and say that you're going to get this much. If this heads unionization off at the pass for a little while, or can slow that down before they can get truly organized, and that's really good news. And it probably keeps them out of the courtroom once some of these other cases are settled, which is a big deal. Like, the biggest deal about making these decisions now and moving them forward is get yourself out of the courtroom, because you are not winning. You're not even close to winning. It is, it's just not, it's not been a good thing for you for years. And after the O'Bannon lawsuit, had you said, oh man, we just took one on the chin, let's try to redo something so that we don't do that again. Essentially, because you fought it, you opened yourself up for so much more. And if the SEC and Big Ten do something, then I'm sure everybody else will do it to their level, or the level that they're able to. But again, you're talking about more revenue that those teams will have to share with their players, as opposed to Big 12 and ACC schools in particular.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty, it's pretty gray right now. It's not a black and white story. It's not as though the SEC and the Big Ten have come up with this and this is what they're going to go off and go do. This is something that stemmed from their alliance, their talked about partnership, right, that we've discussed, of how they're going to flesh out ideas with one another, and being that they're really the only two that can look eye to eye with one another, they are going to, go and chart their own course in so many ways. But these discussions started with them and that working group, and these discussions then folded into what was not in the headlines, because it's not as sexy. It's sexier when you just say SEC and Big Ten deciding to do this, that, or the other. And if you read, a paragraph into these, you'll realize that the ACC and the Big 12 was also involved in these discussions. Now, not initially. This came from the Big 10 and the SEC, but then the other two power conferences were then also joining in that, and the hopes of moving that forward. And so it seems like they've got an idea of the angle to take and the angle to try and attack here to help solve some of their issues, but there's a lot of unanswered questions that come with this. Namely, does this stave off other lawsuits? No, not necessarily. So this could solve one problem, but not solve every problem for you, although it could solve a major problem. Now, there's still problems within this that you would need to figure out, like antitrust protection, for example. Where does that come into play? Because then otherwise you settle this one issue, and then what does immediately happen? Athletes sue because they're not getting their fair compensation from a different lawsuit angle. And so this was presented or dropped in everybody's laps as though, here's the big burning answer everybody's been waiting for. I think it can be the impetus of all that. It can be that step forward that we all desperately want to see at this point, because I don't think we want to talk about courtrooms for the next 6 years and them trying to figure out how to not kill the sport. I think we're all kind of sick of that at this point. So whatever moves this forward to whatever it needs to be in the future, whether it's employed athletes or if it's the government intervening or whatever that is, the closer and the quicker that we can get to that, I'm all for that. This seems like a step in that right direction, but it's also not guaranteed to be the end-all, be-all answer. There's a lot of more footsteps that need to be taken, a lot more things that need to be answered. And as they said in every article, there's no deal that's right now happening. This is all very much another one of those things that's been floated without becoming official, that's floated without being done. And I don't think this is much like the conference realignment where they're sort of testing the waters. I think this is just putting it out there. But it's at least a partial solution. And if it in fact could be what it's been painted out to be. It could be the decision that leads to all the others crumbling alongside that, and then we get to a place here sooner rather than later where, yes, there are no more courtrooms for the most part, and you're just going back to being college sports, whatever that looks like.
They have to figure it out, though. They can't push this down the road. They can't kick the can down the road. The thing is coming up by the end of the year, or there might be a judgment. They don't want that. One of the other things, and Dennis Dodd is coming up next, we'll take a break here, is this might, if it works out, still may just kick the can down the road for maybe 8 to 10 years and not be something that can you take a deep breath for the next 15 to 25 years. I don't think we'll ever be able to do that anymore when it comes to college athletics. So coming up next, CBS Sports, Dennis Dodd. Right around the corner, Justin Williams, theathletic.com. His thoughts about all of this. How much is, as we've seen that word socialized, discussed, how much is actually imminent? And is imminent even a word anymore when it comes to college athletics? This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, my dentist in Robinson, Texas, who took over my dental work when I needed it back in the 2020. It was COVID. My mouth was a mess. I knew that I had a chipped tooth. I had this one that hurt and it just got worse because I just took and ate and chewed on too much sugar over the years. And eventually it caught up with me. Dr. Childress sat me down in his chair and he goes, listen, we're going to fix this right now. But this is just a partial fixture. You're going to have to figure out some other things, including the possibility of a full bridge in the front of your mouth one day. That's expensive. That's what happens when you don't take care of your dental work. Dr. Steve Childress has helped me get through some of the potholes, literally, and given me a plan. Feel better about my dental work than I have ever. And that's because he knows what he's doing. His staff is elite. They're fantastic. Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, my dentist in Robinson, Texas.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors. Baylor Athletics Trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports columnist, joins us on 365 Sports with Paul and Craig. David Smoak as well. Dennis, thank you very much. And so now the Big Ten and the SEC, we know they run college football and the revenue sharing. So thank you for your time. How would this work and how would this affect the other schools in the Power Four?
You know what, Smokey, I don't even know to stave off the House lawsuit and some of these other antitrust lawsuits with a hit to the budget to settle this, it's got to be $1 billion lawsuit. Yeah, hit them like 15 to 20 million per Power Four budget. You're asking about the group of four. They wouldn't be on the hook for any money. It was the NCAA and the Power Four that got sued. But there are so many questions going forward. This has been percolating for a while, by the way. This is going to come. But it's getting urgent. We're 9 months away from this House lawsuit, which, just to inform the listeners, if the NCAA allows it to go to trial and loses, which probably will, would cripple the NCAA in college football. It would be a $4.2 billion judgment, tripled in these kind of cases, in antitrust cases. So they are talking. There's so many pieces put together. It's really complicated.
Dennis, how much would the other conferences, again, like, be able to follow suit, but also not have the ability to match those funds?
Yeah, we are we having a bad connection?
I got you.
Okay. All right.
I got you.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. So if you're the Big Ten and SEC, obviously you can offer, like, if you're giving a percentage of revenue, that can be a bigger percentage than the other conferences. How do they stay competitive in this?
How do who stay competitive?
The ACC and Big 12 in particular.
Well, right now we're just talking about what percentage of the athletic budget it would take. I think I figured out at one point at Penn State it would be like 3% to pay this money. At Ohio State it would be like 8%. They can afford it. But what you're talking about is how does it impact Kansas? How does it impact Kansas State? I suspect Baylor will come up with the money because they have it somewhere. But there are ways to do it. I wrote a story, I can't remember, it was earlier this year, maybe last year. I mean, you take out a 30-year note, not unlike when you're buying a house, 20-year note. You get a bank to loan you money and banks will do it very easily because they know these athletic departments are backed by universities. And universities aren't going bankrupt. I can't remember the last one that did. So they know sooner or later that, you know, these schools are good for the money. So they're going to get the money some kind of way. But number one, does it stop all these lawsuits in their tracks? And the early indications are that it doesn't. And if you're going to give this much money to a settlement and then, then it goes to the players, don't you want something in return? Like roster security, like let's say they say, give us 2 years. I think that's reasonable because we all know it's wild, wild west in NIL. 2 years. Okay. Who are you asking? There's no players association. There's no central bargaining unit. That's why this thing is so up in the air. It's a lot of money, but I think these schools want something for it besides settling a lawsuit.
Dennis, and to be clear, you mentioned, just in general, the cap that was, I guess, talked about just in the various reporting of up to $20 million.
Yeah.
Does that not also then beg a question of, can you have a salary cap if they're not employees, and how does that part of this whole equation work? Or would that be where the antitrust exception that you're banking on, you're wishing and you're praying for, comes into play to help resolve that problem for you? Because otherwise, it seems putting a salary cap is just asking for more lawsuits.
Yeah, if you cap income for any individual player, that's a non-starter. That's an antitrust violation on its face. So, yeah, I've seen tweets and talked to people this afternoon that, like, none of this addresses the fact that you're still going to need intervention from Congress to get this done, because you are using the word cap, and you absolutely can't use that word, in trying to distribute this money. So, yeah, you're right. There's so many open holes in this thing right now that I don't know where to start. I think it's progress. I think it's something they absolutely have to do. But there's a lot to go. We've only got 9 months for that trial.
I saw some of the quotes. Jeffrey Kessler. The thought is it's $1.4 billion. The one lawsuit, and it could go as high as, if they go to jury, Dennis, it could be $3 or $4 billion if they lose the case.
The damages sought for it's a class action, so there's a class of athletes who they say are owed past revenue from media rights, stuff like that. I think I quoted USA Today at one point as saying there are 7,000 players in that class. So the damages being sought are $1.4 billion. In the legal world, if you lose an antitrust lawsuit, then the damages are tripled. And so 1.4 times 3 is $4.2 billion. So this is rolling the dice. You absolutely can't roll the dice and try to take this to trial, because the damage to the NCAA and the schools would be unpalatable. They couldn't handle it financially. So you've got to come to this sort of decision.
Now, the talk of the Super League kind of came and went, but are these the kind of offshoots of that, where it's like, well, let's figure out this part of it and this part of it, and then we can start to morph into whatever college football is going to be in the future, which Dennis, we all know kind of needs to have a completely new model.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some small way, I don't think these two really go together in this conversation. I guess there will be schools that don't opt in to paying. Maybe there's going to be tiered payments. Say the ACC and Big Ten can't afford it. Some schools can't afford it, so they had tiered payments. Well, we already know there's a separation. It's just not formalized with the SEC and Big Ten and everybody else. So what are we talking about? Not going to leave the NCAA. They're still going to play those teams. So it's everybody whining about a separation. They're not going to break away. It just is what it is, and we're going to have to live with it. They can't afford those schools that don't opt in can't afford not doing that. I think just because of what it would mean to their membership. You have to be FBS. You hang that shingle on your university. That impacts everything from giving to research to ability to hire the best and brightest in faculty. Just like anybody else, I suspect there's professors who'd rather, work at Penn State rather than IUPUI. And that's what the difference in some of this stuff is.
Well, and I brought this up, that these schools, and let's say outside of SEC and Big Ten, the ACC's got some alphas, and the Big 12 has a bunch of schools who are spending a ton of money on new facilities and more. Yeah. And they're not doing this, Dennis, to be a part of playing for the FCS or some secondary level championship.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. I spoke to a group of students at Kansas yesterday and brought this up again. I think schools like Northwestern, Kansas, there's some others, Vanderbilt, which is doing a massive capital project. This is their love letter to major college football. In other words, if and when that breakaway does come, we want to be in that top 50, and here's why. We are serious about football. I went to Kansas yesterday and looked at what they've done. They basically are building a new stadium. They've torn the whole thing down to studs. They're going from 48,000 to 42. They're going to have a convention center, hotel, new football facility. It's incredible what they're doing. Northwestern is spending $800 million to build a new stadium on the footprint of Bryant Field, to the point that they're playing they constructed a temporary 3,000-seat practice field stadium that they're going to play home games at this year. Some of the Wrigley Field too, but it's amazing the lengths they're going to. So I don't want to say this would be a drop in the bucket, but it would be some more money that they would have to pay. Absolutely.
Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, with us on 365 Sports.
Dennis, on just another college football note, everybody expected this transfer portal cycle to kind of go nutso, and it really it hasn't, right?
Yeah, you're right. Not very many big names. Isn't that weird? We all look. I include myself in there, and probably you guys. We all, well, this is the end of the world. All these guys are going to transfer. There's actually less people leaving Colorado. I mean, it almost looks stable under comparatively with Coach Prime at Colorado. Bigger names haven't gotten in the portal. Coaches, I guess if I had to sum it up real quickly, they've done a better job at recruiting their roster. You still have Dabo Swinney, who says our best transfer portal's in that locker room, where he still adheres to that model, is going to keep guys. I don't know if that's going to work for him when you need a right guard all of a sudden. That's another story. But you're right. It was much ado about nothing, and it expires, by the way, the second portal window expires today. This is the last day, April 30th.
Do you think that you'll see, and we've had some coaches on that have said this, that we'll see less and less spring games that are televised?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't thought of that. I mean, we had ESPN went all in with Colorado last year. Who was it this year? Fox went in with Ohio State and Michigan. I mean, that's not something I'm really. Yeah. Over the years, I've thought, I've gone to games and I've come away and go, that's one of the biggest wastes of time I've ever had. Some guy who's never going to play just ran for 170 yards. Number one, because you don't want to show the starter. Number two, you don't want to show your play to the opposition. So, yeah, I'm all for less spring games being on television. Actually.
Well, we bring that up because some, like Joey McGuire even mentioned, because of the transfer portal ending with mostly after everyone else is done. Yeah. You don't want to show some guy that might have flourished during the spring or off season. Yeah. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it goes along with the old philosophy of those games being mind-numbingly boring because you're not showing plays and players along with it. You're right.
Last year at the Baylor scrimmage, I could not have told you what was going on. Like, I just knew, he threw a pass to this guy. Well, he scored a touchdown, but they put 2 points on the board. Like, I don't know at all what's I couldn't tell you what's happening, what kind of Stableford scoring that they've invented for this. They're just they're fancy practices is all they are.
Dennis, last question. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I just think the best thing they could do, I think, is teams actually play each other in a scrimmage or a game. That's been talked about forever, but probably won't happen.
I've never understood why, let's say Baylor or whoever doesn't play Sam Houston State in a spring game or even a scrimmage in August. Right. Why not, right? What would you say, last question for you, thanks for your time, presidents, ADs, and football coaches, how many of them are on board for revenue sharing, would you say?
I think I've said this for a while. I think even if they're against it, they have to accept the reality of it because that's the only way we get down this road to resolving all this madness. I've talked to ADs who for years have thought, yep, this is where we're heading. I might not like it, but you better get ready for it because if you fight it, again, you're going to end up in court or something like that. So it's coming. I've told people a year from now, we will all be talking about players being compensated. And so, again, how does that change from what's actually happening now? We're just talking about details. Instead of NIL, it's revenue sharing. It may be a mix of both. And then I said in 2 years, we won't even be talking about it. Mm-hmm. It'll be something that's just ingrained into the game. Has it done anything to impact Saturdays at all since July 1st, 2021? I would submit no.
Dennis, as always, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, with the column earlier today and also on the show, SEC Big Ten developing plan to share revenue with players and potential landmark change to college athletics. I asked Dennis that last question. Craig, what did you type up about presidents, ADs, coaches?
They don't have a choice. Doesn't matter what they want. Their feelings do not matter at all in this. If you don't want to be a part of revenue sharing in college sports, well, guess what? You're not going to be the athletic director at Clemson ever. You're going to be the athletic director at Ouachita Baptist because that's where they will not have revenue sharing. You don't want revenue sharing? Go to IUPUI or go to UT Permian Basin or go to any of those schools that aren't making enough money to be able to revenue share. And I could go higher on the list and go with bigger schools. I just don't know where that cutoff is going to be because it's, quite frankly, going to be a choice. I mean, you're not going to have the choice if you're not in a power conference right now. And I know everybody, it's only a power 2, it's a power 4, whatever. The power 4 is the power 4. Why are they the power 4? Because no matter how much money 2 of the others are making, they all get the same say as far as the rules go. That's the power. That's not the money is not the power in the power 4 label, so it is a power 4 still. Now, if you're outside of that power 4, you know, it's I'm not sure what that cutoff is going to look like per se, but that cutoff could very well be do you have up to $20 million to pay your athletes? Do you have a minimum of this amount? Because here's the deal. You don't have to pay $20 million, to be very clear, under this proposed idea. You can pay $20 million, up to $20 million, but you don't have to pay $20 million. But if you're going to be in the game, you got to have some skin in it. So what does that bare minimum look like? Is it a minimum of $10 million that goes towards your roster? But the $20 million is that's why I asked the question in part about the cap, is because if you say we come to this agreement and the most any school can spend is $20 million, well, then there's going to be a lawsuit right away saying you're capping the amount of money that we can make. And it also doesn't address how inevitably schools from, I don't know, let's just say the SEC will find a way to get their uneven playing field back because they worked this hard to get it. Why are they going to go, you know what? Yeah, let's all have a $20 million cap each, and we won't go beyond that, and we'll all play by the same rules. So
what if you do the revenue sharing and it's $20 million, but you still pay athletes still get NIL?
Well, that's what's going to happen, and that's where Georgia and Texas and all of those will still have their clear-cut advantage. Yeah, that's where they will still have the ability to go and basically do the under the table that's now over the table, or still sometimes under the table because you're tampering or whatever, even though we know nobody gets in trouble for that really. That's the part where I think you're still going to see that gulf of a difference between the Big Ten and the SEC versus everybody else. But if you're Kansas and you're not getting that Big Ten invite anytime soon, or whoever else that's in that same type of a category, and you want to play ball and you feel like you can pony up through your school $15, $20 million a year to compete, that'll get you in the door, it sounds like, although that number could fluctuate. But, yeah, that's not going to be the one-time pay-all, like, hey, we paid our $20 million. That gets us the buffet line every Saturday, and that gets us the full swimming pool access. No, it's not like a country club membership. Yeah. It is in that you get in the door, but you still got to pay for everything else like on a per-deal basis. And so that's what this is. This is a let's stop the madness and let's put I hate to use the word cap because it's not really going to be that way ultimately, but let's at least put like a basic thing in place to where that creates a separation unto itself. You're going to pay or you're not going to pay, right? And so there's going to be schools that just can't pay. And you know what? They're not going to be on the hook for anything. They'll just be a part of that group that doesn't pay. And their athletes will go to those schools knowing like it's going to be bare minimum NIL. It's not going to be millions of dollars because this is all that we can really do. And so those schools will be those schools, and they already kind of are those schools anyways. And then there will be those who are in the club, so to speak. And then, of course, your Ohio States and your UTs will still have more money than everybody else because they'll use it more through the NIL that's not capped, so to speak. But this is a solution in part to just try to corral some of this and get it under one roof and get everybody on the same page. But, of course, it's college athletics, so there's still always going to be people looking for the advantages elsewhere. And I think that's where the NIL portion of this would come into play.
All right, Justin Williams, theathletic.com, his thoughts about this same topic. He'll join us here in the next segment.
But this would be the revenue sharing. This would answer that question. This would answer the question about how do you pay athletes in the future, and you avoid those lawsuits because now you've come to an agreement on we are setting aside $15 million per year. This will be spread through the athletes. They get their pie. Boom, solved. You get that. And then, if Shedeur Sanders, although he's got a lot of people angry at him today, rightfully so. But if he wants to go make an extra $2 million through Tide or something like that, then he could still do that.
And get a car and also anything else.
But Colorado would have their basic, this is what we pay, this is under the rules, this everybody else is playing along, and then we move forward with whatever other issue.
Who's going to watch the cap? Who's going to watch that somebody doesn't spend more than $20 million?
I mean, can we just get something done before we worry about the next thing? I know what you mean.
One of the stories that I saw with another story that I read about this is that this will hopefully calm things down, although I don't think it'll ever happen for 8 to 10 years. At least give college athletics kind of a deep breath for 8 to 10 years. And then, again, then in 5 or 6 years, who knows if it again.
Well, look, for unions to happen, it's going to take the better part of a decade to start one.
Right.
Like if the 5 of us wanted to unionize right now, just because there's a few less of us, it would take a little bit shorter. But if we wanted to unionize right now, it would still probably take us 5 years to go through the process and, get all that. So you're talking about, thousands or millions of people, who would be a college athlete, union, however they would do it. It's going to take a long time. So if this can, give them time to figure that out, then I think it's all better.
Yeah, I think that, it's like it said in the article, there's the future part of this and there's the past part of this, and you want to go ahead and get those damages out of the way, I think, best you can, and move on from the past athletes and come to an agreement on what the future looks like for those coming up, and that would be hey, we're in this club and we're spending $20 million plus NIL money that you can go make on your own, but that's basically what this is doing. You got a couple of birds out there. You're trying to knock it out with one stone. I don't know if this does this entirely, but this is an angle to take that could potentially do that or get you most of the way there and far enough down the road that, we can hopefully have some peace and quiet of some sort on this front, because I don't believe, as much as people love the chaos, I don't believe it's healthy for every single week, every single day of every single year for there to be this type of story constantly swirling in the news.
If it's not sometimes even healthy for us who cover it and we thrive off of it, imagine if you're running an athletic department or university. You're exactly right. When we come back, what Justin Williams has to say. This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. Even though the auction online and the online auction, the auction they had last week, and those in person, it was fantastic. Hundreds and hundreds of pounds of farm-raised Wagyu beef. I have been to their facility. I have been to their ranch. Saw Samantha, got to meet Mr. Duvall again, and also even his son Tyler. It is phenomenal, and they had an incredible auction last week. But just because the auction's over doesn't mean they stop selling what they have. Their product is online at TexasBeefHouse.com. If you want to grill something with the weather getting nice and warm, you want to grill fajita meat, you want to grill steaks, you want to put something in the smoker or even the oven, they have it for you. What you want, they have. TexasBeefHouse.com with farm-raised Wagyu beef. I've been there. I've seen the cattle. The Angus is just amazing. There is a bunch of them that are sitting there. I got close to even the fence where they had the Angus cattle. Oh, my Lord. They have just all you could imagine, and it's farm-raised. They're very careful about what they feed their cattle, and then, of course, from their pasture to your plate. It's TexasBeefHouse.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Justin Williams, theathletic.com, joins us. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak, and this is, again, 365 Sports. Justin, thanks for your time. So there are so many lawsuits. The NCAA can't win any of them. Now there's the thought about revenue sharing, cap, $20 million, the back pay for $1.4 billion, whatever it might be. What are your thoughts about what you actually think is going to happen to get people out of the courtroom and college athletics back to normal?
Yeah, I mean, something's going to change one way or another, whether that's a judge saying it, whether that's Congress saying that, or whether it's, the various people with power in the NCAA, finding a way to come to some type of agreement. And so that's what you're seeing all of this stuff, whether it's, people remember the subdivision that Charlie Baker, floated back in December, or whether, all this talk about revenue sharing and the House case, it's coming from this House versus NCAA lawsuit. So at some point, here in the relatively near future, the next couple of years, there's going to have to be some kind of watershed change. I think the biggest thing that people don't know right now is what's going to cause that. Is it going to be a court? Is it going to be a judge? Is it going to be, Charlie Baker or Greg Sankey or someone in the NCAA making that decision? And those are kind of all these details that we're trying to hammer out. And honestly, we don't have a lot of clarity on at the moment.
Justin, do you think that this would provide at least some sort of pause or ability over the next few years for college athletics to figure out what it needs to be in the 21st century as opposed to what it was in the middle of the 20th century that it's been trying to go back to for so long now, and players can build a union and can go to those things while still getting revenue share?
Yeah, it does feel like a half measure or a stopgap. In part, the House case, this is the one that, when people hear about this case, it's the one that has kind of that $4 billion potential damages number attached to it. If the NCAA were to, go to trial and the NCAA were to lose, that's a death sentence for the NCAA. So that's why there's talk of, figuring out a settlement, figuring out a way to find, kind of a revenue sharing middle ground, because the worst case scenario for the NCAA is that it goes to trial and they lose, and they pretty much have to declare bankruptcy. But, I'm with you that I don't know that it's going to be kind of the final measure, because that 20 million revenue sharing number per school that's been floated out there, that was, an average number that was pulled of all the power conference revenues. That has nothing to do with the students, employee status or collective bargaining. That's just kind of a number that they pulled out of thin air as an estimate. So there's still a lot of different things that would have to get figured out. A settlement in the House case would maybe take care of some of these other cases that are going against the NCAA right now, but it wouldn't prevent future lawsuits from being brought against it. So it would be probably a move towards the inevitable future direction that things seem to be going. But I don't have any, belief that whatever comes out of, this particular potential settlement for revenue sharing, I don't think that's going to be kind of the end format that we end up having.
Justin, while it's not going to be the end, I think we all agree on that. Is this you've heard, just like everybody else throughout the course of realignment, just all this noise that the great separation, or however you want to refer to it, but would this if they were to move forward in this revenue sharing model in a roundabout way be a separation, just maybe not the one that people are thinking of when they think of like two leagues breaking off and doing their own thing, but more or less like those who choose to pay and those who choose to say, hey, we can't do it, and this is going to be your more typical traditional college football?
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a further dividing of, power conferences and what is right now the group of five. And, we'll even see Dennis Dodd reported last night that, there's the kind of that formation coalition that the SEC and the Big Ten put together recently, that they're kind of looking on their own at a revenue sharing model. So, all right, so what does that look like? Do they bring the Big 12 and ACC along with them when that happens? Or does that further divide the power too that those two are kind of becoming? But yeah, from, this settlement, $20 million revenue sharing number, that basically is just for the power conferences. Kessler, the attorney who's kind of manning up this House case, has said that for those group of 5 programs. They don't have the money to do that. And that's also where you saw, I think the past couple of weeks we've seen a little bit of chatter about the group of 5 forming their own playoff. All of this is just attached to the growing realization and acceptance that, these two things, unless the same, there is a divide that's coming. And very frankly, it's going to be interesting to see how they approach it from the power conference side, from the SEC Big Ten perspective, and then from the group of 5. Does group of 5 make the jump and just say, hey, before we even get to this point, we're going to start our own playoff, we're going to kind of break off and do our own thing? Or do they wait and see how this all plays out in a legal court sense and then kind of have the decision made for them? But it certainly feels like one way or another here in the next few years, that power conference divide is going to kind of just become, final and completely cut the two separate divisions in half.
So I don't know the exact number. We've heard that $1.4 billion, the NCAA versus House lawsuit, that is around 15 or 16 million per of the power schools, the Power 4 conferences. So there's that's going to have to get paid. And if they go to jury, it could be $4 billion if they're not careful. So they're going to want to settle. So you have that bill that you could probably pay out over time. Then you might have a $20 million salary cap. Is that a salary cap, Justin, that's for football or for universities across the board? Because some schools have 30 sports and some schools might have half that.
So this is one of the many questions that we don't necessarily have an answer to, because you're right that there's the damages portion of this House case, which would be, back pay for previous athletes suing for their, NIL loss potential that they had. And then there's the revenue sharing part of this, both of which are pieces of this House case. And that 20 million number, what we don't know is it beholden to Title IX restraints? Meaning, if you give a certain amount to football and men's basketball, then you also have to give that amount, to women's basketball or to rowing or swimming and diving, kind of the same way what we have Title IX with scholarships. Well, no, the revenue sharing, as long as the opportunities, the scholarships available would be the same for women's sports, maybe the revenue sharing wouldn't have to be distributed that way. But that's not something we have an answer to or anyone has figured out. And then the other piece of that is, all right, so a program has up to 20 million that it can, distribute revenue sharing to student athletes. There would still potentially be NIL on top of that. So for Ohio State, 20 million honestly is a drop in the bucket to you. And then you might also have your collective out there that is still throwing more money at, whichever players it wants to for whatever sports it wants to. So this isn't going to even solve the financial disparity that is happening right now within the power conferences or even within, the Big Ten and the SEC between those programs. There's still plenty of details that need to be hammered out, and in no way would this kind of form like an equal playing field even among those power conference programs.
Yeah, Justin, Title IX really complicates this in that, just very simply, it just says that you have to be equitable. And so eventually I think we're going to get to the point where we clear the hurdle where if you want baseball to have 25 scholarships and softball has 25 scholarships, you want to fund it, you can fund it. It's fine. That's at the discretion of the universities. They just have to balance it out. But when it comes to something like this, revenue sharing would have to be revenue that they make from each thing. I would think in at least the school's mind is yes, for the sports that make money, we're happy. It's easier for us to say this, but for everything else, what are we really sharing?
Yeah. And this is, the Title IX situation has come up in all of these discussions when the subdivision that Charlie put out in December, when that was brought up and the potential of bringing NIL in-house. Well, right now, NIL payments, collectives aren't beholden to Title IX restrictions. So if NIL was brought within athletic departments, would that then be beholden to Title IX? Kind of the same thing we're talking about with revenue sharing. So I think whether it's a court that decides it, whether it's Congress that decides it, one of the biggest pieces of all of these changes moving forward are how does Title IX factor into this? And this is also why you hear, from the athletic department side, from the administrative side, you hear a lot of these programs, a lot of schools saying, hey, if all these changes happen, we're going to lose a bunch of sports. And the reason they're saying that is because it would basically come down to probably football and men's basketball as your traditional revenue-making sports. And then, a lot of them are claiming, hey, maybe we'll just have the women's scholarships that kind of meet that men's basketball threshold. And that talks about maybe getting rid of baseball or getting rid of men's soccer or, men's swimming and diving, things like that. We're a long way off from that. But when you start to hear people on the on the administrative athletic department side making that argument, this is why they're talking about it, because we don't know exactly what role Title IX is going to play in all of this.
I've said this for a while, and it probably didn't register very well because we didn't know what the next level was, and now we see the revenue sharing cap, et cetera. I always thought that Congress needed to do their own job because they don't get enough done in the first place. But if Title IX or women's sports start to be deleted, to me, that's when they would start to feel political pressure. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. But all of this, I think, is also why Congress has not really, jumped at the chance. Sure, they've held hearings and had meetings and things like that, but we've never really seen kind of a full-throated, concerted effort from anyone or either side of Congress to step in and solve this. Congress, again, I'm not a political reporter, but they don't really seem to have a problem kind of sticking their nose in certain situations. This is one where they're like, yeah, they, I think, see the same kind of issues or potential problems that could pop up. And you're right, maybe Title IX is the thing that makes them realize, hey, someone needs to jump in and be the adult in the room, kind of figure out that we don't want to lose opportunities for women's sports or just some of these other Olympic sports, though, maybe pushes Congress this way. But I also think there's a lot of people in Congress that are looking at it and saying, why don't we let some of the court cases kind of resolve and see what happens there and then move forward, because all the problems that we're talking about, a lot of them don't have obvious or easy solutions. That's something that people in athletic departments have known for a long time.
Okay, we Justin, thank you very much. We lost you. I don't know if it's our guest.
Yeah, I don't
might
know.
be
It's
us.
back to back. I don't
because
know.
Dennis Dodd had a little bit of a blip there too. Justin Williams, theathletic.com. Appreciate him being on the show today on the many different angles of college athletics.
Yeah, I think, we got to be mindful that this it's kind of like when the playoff thing was thrown out there and everybody's like, oh my God, is this going to be? And it's like, it's just an idea, guys. Yeah. Like, this isn't, well, what about, and what about, and what about? It's like, it's just an idea, and it's said in the articles, like, there are many layers to flesh out, like Title IX, for example, and what does NIL look like afterwards, and does this stave off further lawsuits, and so on and so forth. So it's a nice idea that's been proposed. There's actually more merit to it than I think the Super Conference pitch that was thrown out there that, well, there's been a couple of those. One from like a month ago that went like in less than 24 hours. It appeared and disappeared, basically.
Turd in a punch bowl.
Yeah, I mean, it truly was. This is not that. This is potentially significant, but it's also, while on a ticking clock, they don't have 2, 3, 4 years to do anything because they've got to avoid the big, massive payout that could be coming their way. So they're on a few months of a countdown, but it's not like, all right, by Friday we're going to have everything all, ready to go in the new era of college football. There's still a lot of details to work through, but there is some potential there. And that's not something that you've been able to say about every idea or every article that's been thrown out there. And I know we want it all to be answered, but I think you try to take the bite out of the biggest bullet that you can and then work your way on from there. And that's what it appears they're attempting to do by at least knocking out the back payments or settling on how the future payments will go. And if you can answer those questions, well, that's a big chunk of the equation right there. And I think you can work your way through the rest of it and what all that looks like. Because I do think it's not going to be just black and white. It's going to be like, hey, these schools decide they're doing this. These schools decide they're doing that. These schools can't do anything. And so maybe that's where further separation comes. But it's at least something. And even the lawyers on the other side are acknowledging that it's something. And that's better than what we've had a lot of the times when you're talking about college sports in a courtroom. So, yeah, they don't want this to go to trial. And maybe this is the way to settle that, but it doesn't settle everything.
Dan Miter, I think it's actually, he's told me this before, but the way it's spelled. But how about the Back Bay? How far back? We asked that question in 2019 when everything kind of started to change a little bit, when right before 2020 when you had COVID, the NIL started, of course, and also then the transfer portal. So it's a 4-year deal. It's not back to 1985. I asked that question, and Craig looked it up. It's 2019. It's 4 years. So those 4 years, athletes that were a part of it. Again, I don't know if that's football only. Is that volleyball? I don't know that.
No, I think it's all
but
athletes.
It's 4 years. You could get a check. If, in fact, they end up with this, whatever the settlement might be, they'll have to pay.
Yeah, none of what's being talked about is like football strictly.
Yes.
I mean, it's college athletes. It's everybody. It's Caitlin Clark, if she was still in school, would be, dealing with the same issues, or whoever you want to name in any sport. It's back pay, future pay, revenue sharing for college athletes. Now, football is going to get the bigger piece of the pie. Men's basketball will get the second biggest slice, and then women's basketball.
Baseball might be third.
Maybe. I mean,
baseball
whoever.
or women's basketball. Because women's basketball now, but in the past, it hasn't been much of a revenue sport.
Maybe it's hockey. It doesn't really matter who it is, but they're all going to get their piece of the pie in whatever particular order, starting with football and then men's basketball, and then you go from there. But yeah, this isn't this solves football. No, this is trying to solve it all. And so the reason why it only goes back to 2019 was the statute of limitations for this type of lawsuit, I believe. So that's why, you don't have athletes from the 50s alleging back pay. I don't know what that figure would look like. I mean, dear God, if it's $4 billion for the past 4 or 5 years, what would it be for? I mean, that's why they can't go to trial, because that alone, this figure that they're looking at, they're actually fortunate it's not 100 years worth of back pay, because this figure alone that they're talking about is enough to basically destroy the whole enterprise. Georgia SEC money be damned. Yeah. You too would get pinched by this in a way that wouldn't be comfortable.
If it ends up being $4 billion, you're looking at about 60 million approximately among, let's say, the 70 schools that would be a part of the back pay. 70 schools. I just put 70. It's probably less than that. $4 billion would be around 60
I'm talking
million.
about it'd be way more than $4 billion if you were going past the past 5 years of this whole thing.
It'd be oh my God, it would be.
I'm saying,
you can't even
though,
get to a
just the
number,
price that they're looking at right now is enough that even Alabama squirms a little bit at the idea of having to help pay out that lawsuit, because as it's been relayed, this isn't Texas A&M Commerce going, all right, well, here's our piece of the tab, and this is Ohio State and all the power schools.
Schools, yes.
These are the ones that have to deal with it. So, yeah, they're looking at eating that whole bar tab, and I don't care how much money you're making off TV rights, that's still going to sting everybody.
If you go to the actual jury
which
settlement.
Is why they won't,
which
is why they're trying to cut that off and try to come up with an agreement like this that will stave that off. And so that's why it's a partial solution potentially, and it certainly has more legs than anything else we've really heard about. So hopefully this is something that moves forward and they can follow through with, but it will only be part of the solution ultimately.
J.G. Nielardo, I really don't understand the back payments and the associate cutoff, because I haven't read much about it. What is the justification? The justification is that forever and ever the NCAA was not allowing student athletes to get paid. And they started losing lawsuits and NIL and more lawsuits. There's like a dozen of them. You get a lot of the attention. There's the $1.4 billion settlement, if they ever get to that point. And there's like 3 or 4 other pretty large ones. Since Alston, and then before that, who's the O'Bannon.
Yeah.
And when all that started happening, all these lawsuits started. This has been going on now for quite some time, JG. Appreciate the question and the comment.
That's why they're trying to settle, because they know that, and I'm not sure what Jeffrey Kessler is using here as his legal argument, but I would say that part of it has to be that they knew that they were going to have to pay eventually and kept pushing it off, especially starting in 2019. They knew it was coming. So that's why he's saying back pay. Especially once Alston happened. So I guess that's why, but that's why they're trying to settle. They're just trying to,
Kessler, there was an article last Friday that said this. Kessler said it's $1.4 billion or whatever they settle on. Maybe it's less if they settle. But with the settlement will have to come revenue sharing / cap. If they don't settle and it goes to a jury trial, it could be $4 billion. And that's not just him throwing out some frivolous number.
No, and look, if you think about it like insurance companies, right? Insurance companies deny your claim and dare you to sue them, because ultimately they do that all the time because they know that they're going to come out on top. They're fine being in court. Well, the NCAA has figured out that they are not an insurance company. Like, they don't have that kind of juice. They can't do that. They're just losing. And, even if, if you sue an insurance company for $25,000 and because they owe you $25,000 and then they wind up settling for $21,000, well, they save $4,000. And if they do that a month, they pay the lawyers enough. I don't know. I don't know how their math works, but it works out for them.
Again, JG, 2019 is when this would kind of kick in. Why? Why not 2017?
I believe it's the 4 or 5 years leading up to the
Alston
case,
decision, which was 2021.
And I think this, and it's hard. I didn't go to law school, so all these articles that we read on a now daily basis, it's hard for me to absorb. We really almost need to be a lawyer now to follow all this. But I believe there's a statute of limitations involved.
Yes,
I think
that's
so.
exactly what's in the article.
And so that's why it only goes back to a certain point, is there is a statute of limitations for, I believe, this type of lawsuit. And if I'm wrong, which I think I'm right on that, then I have no problem ever being corrected. So I believe that answers your question. And I'm trying to find where I read that a couple weeks back, but that was what I remember that being the case, was that, yeah, it was basically, that's the type of lawsuit that's as far as you could take it back, but I'll continue to look for that.
If it goes back further than that, then we're talking about every university athletic department would never be able to continue on, because it would be just ridiculous. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, like,
JG, thanks for all the information, guys.
Yeah, I mean, like, I really don't want to paint all this out every time to be like, oh my God, this guy is falling, and be all dramatic and all that, but I mean, yeah, this would be bad news if it went further back. That's why they're trying to limit as much damage as possible, and that's why you settle, so you don't go to court and turn 1-point-something billion or 2-point-something billion split between you into $4 billion, and then everybody's hurting it. Now, you still have your Ohio States where if they have to pay $20 million, that's like maybe 10% of their overall money. So when I was talking a few moments ago about everybody feeling the pinch. That's, if you're like, let's go to court. Okay, $4 billion. Like, all of a sudden, you're really ramping it up. And I don't care if it's 10%, 15%, 20% of your budget. You're still going to feel that. And one thing we've learned is these schools don't like losing money. They'll eat it if they have to, but they don't like to do it. And so if you can avoid losing more money, potentially tens of millions of dollars, then you're going to try and do that as best you can.
Because some schools are losing money, if not all, because a lot of those who donated for facilities and improvements and renovations are also now being hit up for NIL. And I don't care how much money somebody has, you don't want to do or cannot do both. All right, when we come back around the corner, Randy Peterson, Des Moines Register, covers Iowa State. It's the only school in the Big 12 that we have not been able to get some kind of a post-spring football update. We had him on scheduled for last week, and they had a press conference that he had to do right about the time we scheduled him. So that's coming up with Randy Peterson, and it will be the last time that we'll hear from him because he's retiring, which is something we knew about a few months ago, and now he's officially, this is it. We'll get an update from him.
Yeah, just so antitrust claims as well as discrimination claims could be blah, blah, blah. However, the statute of limitations in the Sherman Act, which is federal, and in the Virginia Antitrust Act, which is state, is 4 years from the date of the most recent. So that's why, again, it's the statute of limitations that is creating that time window there.
Randy Peterson retiring, and now he'll be with us next on Iowa State football. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer still in pipe. 1943, they opened their doors, and here we are. It's 2024. It's amazing. There are a lot of stores, offices, buildings, whatever, over the years that I have seen that have sponsored whenever I've been in radio and television that just eventually ran out of gas because of a huge store that walked in, big business walked in. They call them big box stores that walked in, and they just have so much. They can also ask for less when you buy product because they have so much product. And there are just so many locally owned companies that can just find a way to do it because they also have not only great product, their prices might be a little bit higher, but also what you get in return as a customer with the customer service and all of what they bring to the table is good. It's hard though, but that's what Pioneer Steel and Pipe has done. 1943, pipe, steel, metal. You want to build something, commercial real estate, Pioneer Steel and Pipe. But they now have their own large company, big building on the loop just east of I-35 on Loop 340 and Highway 6 in Waco. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. You want to build something, you want to know what they have, and you need to go there. Generations of families have gone back, not just once, generations, because of what they bring to the table at Pioneer Steel and Pipe, pioneerboys.com.
It's Ram Truck Month at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a $4,000 rebate on the powerful and capable 2024 Ram 2500 Tradesman and Lone Star. Hurry in today and don't miss out on this incredible deal. Visit us now at Allen Samuels in Waco or 24/7 at AllenSamuelsDCJ.com.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
When your business depends on technology to stay on track, you need professional IT services you can trust. Carry On Solutions offers managed IT services, network professional consulting services, and cybersecurity. Carry On Solutions expert team handles M365 and Azure migrations, Active Directory assessments, security assessments and hardening, Exchange migrations, Windows Server upgrades, Veeam backup and recovery solutions, and more. In a world where technology is constantly evolving and security is an ever-ending concern, Carry On Solutions will keep your business running by minimizing risk, downtime, and giving you peace of mind. For more information, email sales@carryonsolutions.com or contact carryonsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Randy Peterson is a patient man. I keep annoying him, asking him to come on. He covers Iowa State and has for decades. He's the best at what he does. And for the Des Moines Register, joins us on 365 Sports. But, Randy, tell everybody this is it. No more segments with us. You're done.
I'm done with you guys. I'm absolutely done with you guys. I love being on with you guys. I really do, because I can have fun with it. It's not all buttoned down and any of that stuff. But I'm retiring this week at the end of the week after 52 years at the Register. So
52. Wow.
Yeah. So I've been blessed, man. I'll tell you, in this day and age of newspapers, trying to redefine themselves multiple times a day, layoffs and everything throughout the whole journalism business, the media. I've been blessed. So, I'm going to just going to ride off into the sunset.
So where will you be the first time Iowa State football plays next fall?
Hopefully tailgating somewhere.
There you
I've never tailgated. I mean, really, I haven't. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know. I'm assuming I'll be tailgating somewhere. Probably.
Good for you.
In Ames. Probably in Ames. Maybe I would say. I don't know. I'm not a. Hey, anybody that's got a ticket and anybody that says, "Hey, come on to my tailgate," dude. My hand's out.
Are you going to have to learn this? Going to give you instructions on how to actually do that?
I've seen enough of it. I think I can handle it. I've practiced bits and pieces of it for a long time. During the 52 years, I practiced bits and pieces of it. You know, I've got figured out what beer to drink and what to eat. It's just a matter of not walking past the tailgates with my laptop and people saying, "Hey, come on and have a beer with us." And I say, if you're out here 4 hours after the game, after I get done writing, you betcha I will. And
there you go.
There's nobody out there.
Randy has been. Randy, congratulations on all that, and certainly a very long career to be proud of. Certainly, we appreciate your time, but let's dive into Iowa State here. First things first, I guess top of mind is how's everybody reacting to that game in Ireland? Farmageddon going overseas, and it doesn't ruin Iowa State having a home game. It does for Kansas State, but what's kind of been the opinion on that the last few days?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've talked to some Iowa State fans, and 2 years out, 2 years away, they're excited. When it comes time to actually figure it out and figure their financial commitment to get over there, they may change. But they're excited about it, and I know the Iowa State players are as well. I saw a video of their response when Campbell announced to them earlier this week, or I guess it had been last week, that they in fact were going to go over there and play K-State. So it's going to be interesting to see how many Iowa State fans actually go over. But as of right now, it sounds like every Iowa State fan around is going. I mean, obviously that'll change, but Iowa State is very loyal. Their fans are very loyal. They travel. What's that cliche? They travel well. Iowa State travels well. So, and they, you guys have seen Iowa State fans when they play on the road.
Oh yeah,
they're everywhere. So, it'll be interesting to see. But I guarantee you, I will not be going to that game. I promise.
Is that what sent you into retirement? You didn't want to go to Dublin?
No. But it was interesting. My daughters, who've been so much a part of this whole journey with me, they said, "Look, Iowa State waits till you're retiring to go overseas and play." And I, whatever. That's not how it worked out. But it just worked out, and good for Iowa State. I mean, and they're not missing a home game out of it. Get this, it's K-State's home game. So last season Iowa State played at K-State in a blizzard and smoked them, beat them badly, in a blizzard, a snow blizzard. I mean, it was ridiculous. You couldn't even see the field from the press box. And then this year they're playing at Ames, and then next year when they go back, when it's supposed to go back to Kansas State in 2025, they're playing in Dublin. So they go from a blizzard, a snow game, ankle deep snow, in 1 year, and then 2 years later in Dublin. So, it's interesting how that plays out. But good for both teams. I mean, I know Chris Kleiman, the K-State coach, is in Iowa, and I wrote about him when he was just a kid playing high school football. So I mean, good for good for both programs, good for both fan bases. Spread the word, college football, spread the word about college football, internationally as much as you can. And it's all good as long as you're not missing a home game out of it, which Iowa State's not.
Randy, they obviously, the year of 2022, it was a kind of this one of those years. And the Big 12 has like 3 or 4 teams one year that win the close games, and next year they don't. We've seen that with TCU last year, Baylor the year before that. But they did take a step back, but they were very young. What else did Matt Campbell do to get everything back on track last year for the Cyclones, knowing that they are still not happy with 7-6, but they got to a bowl game and they were in the postseason with that? What did he do differently?
Well, not first of all, but among the things they did, he did over the last 2 seasons. He's done a big overhaul on his staff, primarily the offensive staff. I mean, essentially 90% of the changes were with the offensive staff, because you're not going to mess around with that defensive staff. And with John Haycock, I mean, unless you've got guys going on to improve themselves other places. So it's been mostly offense. It's been the offensive staff, and it's been the offensive line coach, Iowa State's offensive line, up until a year and a half ago, midway through the 2022, I could see it's starting to improve a little bit. But nonetheless, before last season, they got a new offensive line coach, and the offensive line improved significantly. I mean, very, very much it improved. And so he's back this year with an offensive line. Everybody's back, and they've got 95 to 100, whatever it is, starts combined. That offensive line. So he's changed offensive line coaches. He's changed running back coaches. He's changed quarterback coaches. By the way, he's changed offensive coordinators twice in the last 2 years. He got rid of Tom Manning, who was, he was been with Matt Campbell since before Matt Campbell even came to Ames. Manning, Iowa State's offense was just very stale, and so they parted ways. And then he promoted Nate Scheelhaus to offensive coordinator for last season, and Scheelhaus is now in the NFL, and good for Nate. Good for Nate. He wants to be a head coach, and he wants to get as much of a varied background as he can. And so he's got another offensive line coach, Taylor Mauser, who's been with Matt before Matt came to Iowa State, in various roles. So it's interesting that Rocco Beck, the quarterback, a very good quarterback, has had 3 offensive coordinators, and this will be his 3rd in 3 years. His freshman season, his redshirt freshman season, and now his sophomore season. And his dad's a coach, and Rocco's dad's a coach for one of those teams in the XFL. So anyway, so those are the most significant changes they've made. They've changed staff. They've got they really didn't get transfer portal guys. I can't think of any transfer portal guys that's made a huge difference. But it's just the players were so young 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was the youngest team Iowa State has had since I can ever remember. And I went back and looked over the last 25 years or so, and just at the starting lineups. And Iowa State had never, in 25 years, had never put out a team as young as it was 2 seasons ago. So it's maturing of the team. And dudes, this team is still young. I mean, they've got 20, whatever it is, 20 of 22 starters back, whatever that is, something like that. But a lot of those guys are still juniors or younger. So this future is very bright for Iowa State football right now.
Randy, This is a team that has never really done well under Matt Campbell when the expectations are high. It's when everybody kind of sells them short. How does he bridge that gap of, that they came off the Big 12, title game one year and then dipped, and then people had said, well, this gambling scandal is going to cook them, and it didn't. And then now people are expecting, well, they'll probably be pretty good because, like you said, they've got all these returning starters, especially on offense. But how do they continue to sneak up on people or reach their full potential in a year?
You're exactly right. They're on the expectation part. When they're not expected to do well, they do well, and when they are expected to do well, they don't do as well. They went 7-6 with with 4 draft choices, including Brock Purdy 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that team underperformed. But so in this year, what Campbell did was he made spring ball as tough as he could. I mean, he toughened it up because he's got veteran players now. He toughened it up. They worked. He made what they were doing in the weight room. They made that tougher instead of just doing jumping jacks and push-ups during spring ball. They actually did live scrimmages 4 or 5 times with officials. So they really amped up the spring ball, and I expect it to be the same way throughout the summer workouts. I am assuming their summer workouts will be tougher than what they've had, and certainly the fall workouts will be probably about the same as they've been. So that's the main thing he's done, is to amp up the workout schedule, and knowing that the expectations are high, and realizing that they're high because he's got a veteran team that can handle this. So that's what they've done, and he's embracing this expectation thing, and so's Rocco Becht, and so's Abu Sama, running back, and the receivers that could be among the best receivers in receiving as a position in the Big 12. They're all embracing it. They want people to have expectations of them. They know it, and they're not shying away from it. And that's a good thing.
Abu Sama, you brought him up, and somebody in the chat asked about this. I was going to ask. He had 276 in the snow and went nuts against K-State. Nuts. He had 110 against BYU on the road. But other than that, there's a couple of games, 50 now, but he had 12 carries, 4 yards, 7 carries, 11 yards. Of course, that was against that UT defense with those big tackles inside. 8 carries, 7 yards, 3 carries, -5. Was he hit and miss or just he didn't get a lot of carries till the end when he ran through K-State, and of course they didn't win the game against Memphis in the bowl game?
The running back room was in a bit of, I don't want to say a bit of chaos last year, but it was in a bit of flux. 2 of the running backs quit midway through the season, for example, and they were getting touches, they were getting carries. They had 4 or 5 backs last year that were sharing carries, and I didn't see how that was going to work from the start, because there's not enough footballs to go around. And when you guys know this, when you're 18 to 22 years old, and you've got your eyes set on going to the NFL, and you've got your eyes set on making as much money as you can in the corporate world with the name, image, and likeness stuff, you need to play. And these guys weren't playing consistently, so that had something to do with Sama. I'll go to bat for Sama forever. I've known the kid for a while. My daughter taught him in high school. He's a good kid. He's from a good family. So, but it was just a matter of getting reps, getting touches, and let's face it, there were times last year when that offensive line was absolutely horrendous. I don't have the stats in front of me, but the game at Ohio University, that was Iowa State got beat by, what was it, 10-7 or something like that, by Ohio University team that wasn't great. right then and there, they decided right there they're going to change this offense around. They're instead of running the ball constantly, trying to run the ball when it's not there, when the rush isn't there. They decided, okay, we've got Rocco Beck, we've got outstanding receivers. Let's throw the ball. Let's throw the ball around and see if that opens up passing game, opening up the running game, and it did. So yeah, I mean, Sama was I'll say you're right. He was hit and miss, but he's had a wonderful spring. From what we've heard, we don't get to watch all the spring practices, but he's had a great spring. So I'm looking for big things, and plus they've got maybe 3 running backs this year, and they all the running backs know their roles. They know that Sama's going to be the starter. They know, and Campbell called Sama at some point during the spring an all down back. So I said to Campbell, I thought I knew what that meant. I said, what's that mean? And he's because there's an every down back and an all down back. And Campbell said to him, an all down back is somebody you do not have to take out when you need a running back to sit back and block, or you're somebody you do not have to take out when you want to go into the passing game. Sama can do everything. He can go in, he can catch the ball, he can block, and he also can run the ball. Reminds me a lot of Brees in that respect. So I'm looking for big things because he's going to get more reps than he had last year, and that running back room is not in a state of flux like it was last season.
Well, they had Montgomery, they had Brees Hall. Both of them were fantastic, and maybe he's the next in line. So with all of the things going on in college athletics, Randy, and again, appreciate your time today, and great career, 52 years, and enjoy everything. I know you will after this week. But with all of the changes in college football, how much of that does that resonate with Jamie Pollard, Iowa State University, the athletic department? Because we've discussed that what the SEC and the Big Ten are doing, what they even might want to do. There's the possibility of a lawsuit that's going to hit everybody for 15 or 20 million. But Iowa State's not doing all this to go be left behind. So they're all in, correct?
Iowa State is all in as much as they can be. Absolutely, they are. I mean, the coaches and athletic administration, starting with Jamie, they're all in on the collective. For example, yeah, they are. I mean, the fans were a little bit slow to start picking up on that. Hey, they're going to have to pay. They're going to have to ante up some money here to keep some of these athletes. So Iowa State was the fans were a little bit slow into doing that initially, but they've made up for it. But yeah, Iowa State is all in, and it's not just football. I mean, look at TJ Otzelberger. Men's basketball is going to be a top 5 team. They're going to be a top 5 team. Iowa State women's basketball with 5 starters coming back from last season. I mean, Iowa State women's basketball was in the shadows last year, and rightly so, of Caitlin Clark, right here in our state. But Iowa State women's basketball, they're going to be a top 25 team to start out, if not even higher. So there's a lot of good things going on at Iowa State right now. So yeah, Iowa State athletic department is all in with everything else, all in as much as they can be. So the future in a lot of sports looks really good at Iowa State.
All right, I know CY Town is about to be launched in about a year. That's what I expect you to see between Hilton and also Jack Trice Stadium. Randy?
Cy-Town.
What did I say?
CY
Town.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I was
Cy-Town.
Yeah, Cy-Town.
Yeah, they've got stuff going on there now. I mean, they're the parking lot. They've got to resurface all that parking lot area so they can build on that. So I think that's probably pretty much getting done now as far as that part is concerned. And then they just have to build the buildings. Yeah, I would love to be partying in Cy-Town before games. Absolutely.
Thanks for your time. Congratulations on your career. Block my number. I might still text you accidentally and ask you about coming on for a segment and just send me an emoji that's not very flattering. But we appreciate, Randy, you coming on again one more time today. Again, congratulations. What a great run.
Thanks, guys. Thanks
you.
so much for
Randy,
having me. Bye-bye.
Randy Peterson, Des Moines Register with us, at Randy Pete on Twitter, although he now gets to go off into the sunset. Good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's awesome. He's done great work, and it is such a weird time, for newspapers. But to made it 52 years, I hope he enjoys that first tailgate. It is a weird thing to tailgate when you don't, like when he says that, and I've been over to our tailgate a couple times, and I honestly don't know how to act because I'm only there for 10 minutes.
We go on with the pregame show.
Yeah.
We're like 30 minutes before kickoff. We have to fight a little bit, not a lot. Again, nothing compared
Dumb idea
to traffic.
on our parts.
And then we walk. It's hard to go by and get a rib or two. Go by our tailgate, 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio. But what they do, Blake Blackmar and them, it's incredible. If you have a chance to go by there, it's just hard to enjoy the atmosphere of a game, and going to a game just as a fan would be a lot of fun on occasion if it wasn't covering a game. When we come back, Craig Smoak off the radar. John McLean, 5:30, Paul's Top 5 in an hour, and this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for your automotive needs here in the Waco and greater Central Texas area, and that's been the case for going on 2+ decades now over at Richard Carr. They are the people that you can count on, whatever it is that you're looking to get done, whether it's getting to a brand new vehicle, getting into a pre-owned vehicle, just getting your car simply worked on. They can hook you up with whatever it is that you're trying to get done. And right now, if you are one of those folks that's gearing up for big summer road trips with the family, or just getting out and about a little bit more as the weather starts to settle in and stay nice, if you need some space because you got a big crew of folks with you, well, they've got vehicles that have plenty of space for you, like the Buick Enclave, which offers a quiet drive but is also loaded with space-age technology. The Buick Enclave offers, or delivers, I should say, uncommon luxury at a common price, and you can come experience a Buick Enclave test drive today at Richard Carr, and when you do, you can save thousands on the new Buick Enclave. Also save $6,000 to be exact on that Enclave model, but save thousands as well on other Buicks, like the Envision model, for example. Whatever you're looking for, again, they've got options for you and great customer service. If you want to look into those Buick vehicles, not only do you save thousands, but if you're a military or first responder, you can also save an additional $500 on top of that as well. They're also loaded on the lot with quality pre-owned cars and trucks. Over 90 highly inspected vehicles, and 100% credit approval is always the goal. They say yes when others say no. For 25 years in Central Texas, they built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial Exit.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports, Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45. Take a look at just a grab bag of headlines or articles or whatever may get my interest throughout the couple days in the lead up to this segment, and what catches my eye I try to throw in here. Sometimes just general news, sometimes it gets a way off the radar. Just kind of all depends on what's going on in the news cycle. I think we got a little bit of everything, nothing too crazy in this edition, but we'll start off with the NFL draft. I don't bring up TV ratings to create discussion so much as I find it interesting to just kind of track like what events are popular and not so much a comparison type of a thing. But the NFL draft, according to Sports Media Watch, combined 5.9 million viewers across ABC, the ESPN networks, the NFL network, and also all of the digital platforms from throughout the league's coverage, which is down just slightly from 6 million viewers last year, and that average included 5.75 across the main networks. The Thursday night round, the opening round, was up by about 3%, but then fell notably on Friday night, and then all the way to 3 million people watching, which is another 3% drop by Saturday. NFL Network apparently had like the biggest drop off in terms of, I guess, the people going from day one to day two to day three. But no surprise, day two and day three were drops compared to the big show on Thursday, the big opening round. So like 100,000, give or take, or so less people watching. But I don't even bring it up so much, like I said, for comparison or any particular reason other than I usually just mention the big events and kind of what they draw in. But, man, I got to tell you, too, like past the first round, I just felt more bored than ever by the draft. And I don't know if that was a this year thing, if that's going to be more commonplace for me. I know part of it was I didn't have as many guys to have to pay attention to as I normally would, which is, something that definitely helps create more interest and stay until day three is like, hey, where's this wide receiver going to eventually go? But I don't know. It's a big splashy first round, and then after that, I kind of feel like it's not that big of a deal, or at least as much as I used to.
I think Saturday is pretty dull.
Yeah, it's very dull.
Saturday's pretty dull. To me, I watched a lot of it because I'm very curious. Yeah. But it's mostly background noise. Like we'll be doing something and I'll stop and be like, oh hey, and then but I do watch because I'm curious to what this year in particular what the Cowboys are doing because they've
unlike any other year.
No, but this year in particular they appear to like they hear everything that people say and go, you know what? No,
yeah,
we're not doing that. We've got a different idea. But I think the second and third rounds to me are very interesting because they're guys who could, until like the middle of the second round, you're talking about guys who could have gone towards the end of the first round too.
Yeah.
For the most part, there's not as much. I think people don't understand that there's really like 15 to 20 first round picks a year. And then from about 22 on to about 70, you're talking about the same kind of talent level.
Yeah, I think NIL and all that has changed the draft now too.
Yeah.
I don't think there's as many interesting guys. I think it's kind of like you said, it's just very cut and dry. It's like the top 50. It's like the NBA draft. It's like the top 15 matter, and then beyond that, it's like, how into this sport are you?
Yeah.
To want to care and watch the next 3 days. Does that resonate with you, Garrett? Like, I just think that it's kind of gotten to that point where it's almost like spring football. It's just another thing that's kind of evolving a little bit as far as the interest level goes. I just felt that, and maybe that's just an outlier for me this one weekend, but I don't know. I found myself going, I'm not as interested in this as I normally am.
I've kind of been like that the past couple of years, and I think this year really amplified it for me. And, I should have been more attached this year with the LSU, all the people they haven't drafted, Washington and everything. But after the first round, man, I was just tuned into hockey.
Yeah, I think you've got a lot of guys that are just older now. And then you got a lot of older players who are in their 6th and 7th years, and they're not going to get drafted. So a lot of the more familiar guys aren't even really in the mix, if that makes sense. And, there's a lot of guys who otherwise would be redshirt sophomores and juniors going to the NFL. They're like, I'm going to stay at Ole Miss for another year and make more money. And so I think that plays into it a little bit. But still 6 million viewers in total for the or 5.9 million viewers, slight drop from last year's 6 million. And for comparison's sake, the NBA draft, which is coming up this summer, but last year had 3.7 million. The WNBA draft earlier this month had that 2.45 million that everybody was going crazy over. But those are the only drafts that even hit a million, because otherwise, what is there? There's MLB, and that's so scattered and long and such a laborious process that nobody really pays too close attention to that. So that was the big number. Nothing eye-popping, nothing crazy. Status quo, basically, for the NFL draft on television all across the ESPN, ABC networks. Meanwhile, a few notes from post-draft signings. We've talked about Ezekiel Elliott and the Cowboys getting together on a one-year deal, and how inspiring that move is. Also, you had Michael Gallup, former Cowboys wide receiver, signs with the Las Vegas Raiders on a one-year deal that was going to be, or that was announced yesterday. It's going to be worth up to $3 million. But, man, that sure fell off quickly. The whole Michael Gallup and number one wide receiver discussion and kind of where he is now. I know CeeDee Lamb's their number one wide receiver, but the Amari Cooper comparisons from just 2-3 years ago, and how would you look back on those now at this point?
Was the injury what derailed that?
Yeah. I mean, it was. Look,
he made the spectacular catch, but would drop just a...
Yeah, but he was getting better, and especially when he got hurt, he was really at his peak, and he got hurt and never really bounced back from that. The Cowboys made the mistake of, again, with their, they don't view torn ACLs like everybody else does. And he was on the free agent market. Yeah. He was on the free agent market, and they're like, oh, well, we're going to give him this deal. Well, they should have given him a one-year prove-it deal with a torn ACL, like they're giving to Zeke right now after releasing him a year ago. That's what they should have done. But instead, they put themselves into the finger trap, right? Because now they are dead money for Michael Gallup, and he didn't produce for you. Dead money's fine if the guy wins you Super Bowls or helps you win a Super Bowl. Dead money's bad when it doesn't help you at all. And Michael Gallup, it sucks for him. I mean, he's a great personality, and he was really ascending, and hopefully he can get back there. But he didn't do anything with the Cowboys the last 2 years.
Nope, not at all. And that was the big hope, was that he was going to do a lot for them. And luckily, you have CeeDee Lamb. Luckily, you have CeeDee Lamb, who's now awaiting his own payday. But good for Michael Gallup to get another. I guess, shot somewhere else, and we'll see what he does with the Raiders, being an intriguing team. Obviously with the Las Vegas base, that puts a different twist on that franchise than when they were still back in Oakland. But they're kind of in a middle ground of, could be good sooner rather than later, but also could just be the Raiders for the next 10 years still and make dumb moves that keep them there. But that was of note, as was the signing of Travis Kelce to a 2-year, $34.25 million contract, $17 million fully
guaranteed for this season, so he'll make at least $17 million, and this seems like a bit of a no-brainer. Patrick Mahomes quickly commented and said that I told y'all I'll never let him leave. Congrats to my guy Travis Kelce. So he is ascending in the record books, and now he is already one of the greatest tight ends of all time. But the money is looking good as well as he gets a new 2-year deal. So we'll have to live with he and Patrick Mahomes and just the terror that comes with that Chiefs franchise for at least a couple years. Like post-Kelce Mahomes, he'll still be great, but that's just like that's Montana Rice, man. That's one of those. It's like
he's a tight end that's not a tight end. He's one of those hybrid guys that's just as good a wide receiver as anything else, but can still get you the tough yards. He's just a hell of a
and did the Chiefs have to give him an extension, or was it just smart business? I mean, were they up against the clock at all with Travis Kelce?
Well, Paul, in Dallas, we
wait for the leaves to fall.
Yeah.
I mean,
we want to.
Well, some glory hole.
Yeah.
Swing. Hey, Travis Kelce's getting some of that, isn't he? I mean, my God.
How dare you talk about her like that,
Oh,
Taylor
my God.
Swift.
The Swifties are going to.
That's on top list.
We're going to lose
Here's
our
the
license.
deal. This guy.
I feel bad for people that don't know what the Jerry thing I just referred to was. They're like, where did that come from? It's like, just go back about 7-8 years.
Never forget it.
No, we were
training camp in Oxnard.
Literally just turned it. We were sitting in our tent. It was right there, and he's like, I want glory hole days, and I love me some glory hole. The best part about it was Rich Dalrymple, who was the PR guy at the time for years and years.
Who tried to...
He came in and he goes, I would just like to remind all of you that glory hole, after we all tweeted it, that glory hole is a drilling term, and then Jerry goes,
it's
not
a drilling
to me.
term.
He's like an oil drilling term, and Gary goes, not to me.
No, he knew what glory hole he was talking about, and it was a drilling term.
Okay, enough already. Yes, we got it. 13-year-old over here. Yes, we got it. So, Travis Kelce.
Oh, God.
Travis Kelce with a new deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. So there is that. Meanwhile, the Astros have optioned MVP Jose Abreu to the minor leagues as he is batting .099. Former American League MVP, according to their GM Dana Brown, said the decision was mutual between Abreu and the team. He will report to their Florida League affiliate in West Palm Beach, and said that they need to get some production out of first base, and they'll do whatever they need to do, and they've got some guys that have played that position that can take over for the time being, but they said that, this is a very rare thing, and, said that they admire the fact that Abreu is willing to kind of swallow his pride a little bit and make the mutual decision. I don't know how mutual it was, ultimately, but they're portraying it as it was very much mutual. And you know what? There probably is part of him that's like, get me the hell off the major league roster and let me go be bad somewhere else and not on the main stage. He's 37. He's in year 2. He signed a 3-year, $58.5 million deal last year with them after a long career with the White Sox, where he was a multi-time All-Star, also won the AL MVP during the COVID year back in 2020. He's had a lot of accolades, but he was bad last year, had a very rough first debut season where he hit a low 237 average, lows in other categories as well, but now he's hitting .099. His slash line 0.99, 156, and 113 is just abysmal. 7 hits, 18 strikeouts in 77 appearances, and he's been open about it. He said, I got brought here to do a job, and I'm not doing my job, and I'm letting my teammates down, and they're supporting me, but I won't stay down. But he is going to go down to the minors for at least a little while.
3-year, nearly $60 million contract that he signed at the end of the 2022 season.
Just said that, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. 3 years, $20 million, and And you know what? Sometimes you lose it. 15 home runs last year. You sometimes lose it, and sometimes you see golfers do it. And I hope he gets it back. I like him.
If you remember, last year in the playoffs, he found his swing late again, and he was hitting after being an absolute guaranteed out for 162 games. He was absolutely guaranteed out. He got hot in the playoffs, but That's the best part about the baseball playoffs is that nothing that's happened before then matters. Right. It's just about the day, and you know slumps and all those things don't matter. And he broke out of it, but yeah, he definitely needs to go down because this is now 2 seasons in a row
had 90
where he
RBI.
has not hit anything.
Yeah. That's too bad. And they've won a couple of games in a row. They're 9-19. They've struggled. They got to find some help. And if they have to do that, they have to do that.
Meanwhile, baseball's uniform nightmare is over. Don't know how many people kept track of this, but they made a change, so to speak, in the distribution of their uniforms. Nike's still designing and making the uniforms, but Fanatics the one that basically releases them out. And Fanatics, not a, I guess, totally popular company. They have a lot of naysayers, a lot of people that don't like their clothes and it's the way they're made and whatnot. And so this had a lot of people immediately jumping on Fanatics and saying, see, you give them the uniform licensing and they screw it up. And you may have seen during spring training, like there were fonts that didn't match and there was like just the materials weren't as good and it just looked cheap and there was a whole to-do. Well, Major League Baseball said they were going to look at... Yeah, there were pants that were see-through, but Major League Baseball said they were going to look into it, and now they've come to their conclusion, of which they released a memo on Sunday night saying that Nike is entirely to blame for the uniform issue, and said that at its core, what has happened here is that Nike was innovating something that didn't need to be innovated. They changed the lettering on the back of the jerseys. They had at one point in time mismatched grays. Like that was another thing. You had the see-through pants in some of them, but then some of them was like a lighter gray, and then the pants gray would be like a different shade of gray. There's a lot of different issues with it. So they will have changes, include the return to larger lettering. They'll get the tops and the bottoms on the gray uniforms fixed up as well. And they'll also address one of the issues, which was you sweat a lot in some fabrics, and what does that do? You got big old sweat stains, right? Yep. And that was happening on some of the jerseys as well, where you're watching the game and there's a dude with big old pit stains, and it's not what the uniform is supposed to do. It's supposed to wick up the moisture and all of that, so they're going to correct that as well. But, yeah, it's Nike's fault. It's basically what Major League Baseball has said, and so that will be fixed by next year. And Fanatics, for what it's worth, has been absolved from having any part to do with the whole fiasco to begin with. So there you go. Blame Nike for MLB's uniform issue in 2023. Final note here, other than some scheduling stuff, I just thought this was cool that Newt Rockne has been reburied on the campus of Notre Dame. I don't know if you guys had seen this or not, but he has been moved to Cedar Grove Cemetery at the University of Notre Dame as of yesterday. He had been buried in South Bend previously after dying at age 43 in a plane crash, but he was buried at Highland Cemetery. And some of the members of the Rockne family said that the grave didn't have any protection, and so they made the decision to exhume his casket and rebury it. And his wife Bonnie, as well as his son Bill, and his grandson Timothy, were also moved as well, along with Newt Rockne. So the Notre Dame press release said that the request of the Rockne family, they were honored to assist with the disinterment of the remains of football player, coach, and athletic director Newt Rockne and several family members from Highland Cemetery in South Bend to Cedar Grove Cemetery on campus at Notre Dame. And the prayers of the church were offered for the repose of their souls upon their reinterment. So just something you don't see every day, definitely off the radar. But now Newt Rockne and many members of his family are resting in peace on Notre Dame's campus, which seems to be a fitting end.
I saw his grave. When Baylor women, we were in Long Beach, Paul, for Baylor losing to Wisconsin. I flew overnight to Chicago, drove, and Baylor's women played Notre Dame. It was another game before that. Was there for 2 or 3 days, and it was a phenomenal trip. It was horrible, like cloudy, cold, whatever. And I went to that cemetery and found the Newt Rockne grave. And
now you have to go back to it.
Yeah,
now it's on campus. Well, that's really interesting. But it's just there.
Apparently, it was buried where it was originally because they didn't offer certain services.
Yeah, maybe
so
that's
they made the choice, and now that's different decades later. And so they've moved he and some of his family members over to Notre Dame's actual campus. And then I guess to close this on out, The rest of the way, you got plenty of postseason action later on tonight. Triple header in the NBA. You got coming up at 6 o'clock, TNT, 76ers, and the New York Knicks. And did also have a note that Kawhi Leonard, before I move on here, is going to be out for Game 5 against the Mavericks, as that series is now tied up at 2 apiece. But that is coming up tomorrow. But I did want to make mention of that. But Philly at New York. The Knicks lead that series 3-1. They're at home at MSG, so they can close it out tonight and move on to the next round. 6 o'clock TNT. Elsewhere in the East, you got Orlando at Cleveland. That series is tied 2-2. That's at 7 on NBA TV. And then another Eastern matchup. It's an all Eastern Conference slate tonight. Indiana at Milwaukee. The Pacers lead that one 3-1, so they can close it out on the road later on tonight at 8:30 on TNT, all times Central. And then there's a quadruple slate of games in the NHL. You got Maple Leafs at the Bruins. Bruins lead that 3-1, 6 o'clock on ESPN. Islanders at the Hurricanes. Hurricanes can close it out at home. They're up 3-1, just like Boston. 6:30 on TBS. Colorado on the road can close out their series at Winnipeg, up 3-1, 8:30 on ESPN, and then Vancouver up 3-1 can close it out at home as they host the Nashville Predators at 9 o'clock on TBS. So you got 7 postseason games to choose from tonight, basketball and hockey all told, and there you go. There's a few things off the radar.
And LeBron and the Lakers are gone. They're done.
Yep, they're done.
They got swept out of it. Not 4-1. They won Game 4 by the defending champions in Jokic. They are really, really good. How about the Timberwolves, like just mauling Phoenix? Kevin Durant, Booker, and there's is it Bradley Beal? That's a heck of a team, like almost a super team. And Edwards and company of the Timberwolves just like, get out of here.
Yeah, they shoo them away because they're not a super team. They have great names, but they're not a super team at the moment, no matter how many big names they have. Anthony Edwards is one of the most fun players to watch in the world right now, and I don't like Devin Booker based on his beef with Luka and the Mavs, so glad to see the Suns get their asses handed to them, basically, and get knocked out. Now the Mavs need to take care of their own business, obviously. But, yeah, Minnesota was awfully impressive, and they're really fun to watch. And then OKC is as well, as they finished their sweep last night, beating New Orleans in 4 games. So they're definitely dangerous. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is right there with Edwards and a few others as far as most exciting young players.
Pierre Nugent hosts on Mondays with me on Triple Option. You guys know him from his days at Channel 6. He was in Phoenix. In fact, he couldn't be the whole show because he had to catch his flight back to Minnesota. But he was covering the whole series, and said, you made a point about Anthony Edwards. Like, look, he's on his way to being one of the faces of the league right now, if he's not already.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so, like, this other thing is like, okay, Curry's getting older. The Warriors, kind of run appears to be kind of done. Yeah. The Lakers and the Warriors, LeBron, I don't know.
If the Warriors with their core 3, that's over, it seems like. Yeah, it seems over.
So Klay Thompson, Curry, and then Draymond, right?
Yeah, it seems over.
It seems over. So like LeBron, we don't know what LeBron's future is, and
he's playing coy last
knocked
night.
Out
he does this.
Well, I know, but I mean, his plans are we're definitely not getting knocked out easily in the first round as a member of the Lakers. So yeah, he's on the tail end of his career. That's obvious.
Yeah. So it's 39. So like those. So there's new faces of the league coming up, and Jalen Brunson, Anthony Edwards, Luka.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, Shai. Yeah, like so those guys. Although they've got to stop running that Road to Pro once.
That's the worst. Here's one of those things too. Is we'll talk about it and be like, see, you're talking about it. It was worth it. And I hate that. I mean, I guess some of it rings true, like all publicity is good publicity. I don't necessarily agree with that. That commercial sucks.
It's terrible.
That is an awful commercial. It is so cringy. And it's not like, and I like both the players in there. You got Chet and Shai, who are great players, but God, is it the cringiest commercial I've seen in a really long time. It is awful. Awful stuff. So I'm glad you brought that up so I could rant on that because it bothers me every time it comes on TV.
Oh, I change the channel every time.
How embarrassed would you be to be those two? Like, I mean, you're getting paid. Who's the brand? I don't even know.
AT&T.
Okay, news to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know how many people know what brand they're watching because they're so distracted
They're
by
not even holding their phones.
They're not holding a tune either.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
I mean,
God, I hate that commercial.
I guess I don't ever see it or watch it.
How
Most
have you
of the time
not?
I
It
have
was
the,
on
I have
all
the sound
during the
down.
March Madness.
I have the sound down a lot. I really do. Just kind of watching it like a couple of different
Somewhere
screens
some
at
ad
one
person's
time.
like, no, we got them. They're watching it. And like, yeah, by force. But man, I loathe that commercial so much.
By the way, another younger team, Oklahoma City, just swept New Orleans. Gilgeous-Alexander and Holmgren, a young team with some stars. There's some youth coming through the system. No question. Remember Chet Holmgren? Like it seemed like, oh yeah, from Gonzaga.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, oh, I know.
Yeah.
I just but
I still he's so thin.
No, yeah, he is.
Yeah, he
he's
is.
so thin.
Is he
But he's
thicker
7
than
feet tall.
Wembanyama?
No, I don't
Maybe
think so.
slightly.
Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
But like he's in that commercial, and clothes like jackets all fit tighter for the most part now for guys. Like that's the cut, and I don't even think they can make tight clothes for him. Like he'd have to wear like that would be
well,
long
let's go
enough.
get Machine Gun Kelly's throwaways, I guess. And,
yeah, but like it's just
make
he's
them longer.
Like that jacket in the commercial is just draping off of him.
Yeah, no, he's a tall, skinny dude, but he's a very good player.
Yeah.
Very, very good player. And yeah, I mean they're an awesome team, but I loathe that commercial.
Is he the best ever athlete named Chet?
I can't think of another one off the top of my head. The only Chet I think of is Chet Hanks, and I know this. Chet Hanks can carry a better tune. I've actually heard him sing some random video I came across one time. He was singing like Nirvana or something, and was all right. Definitely better than that commercial.
Was there an old TV anchor named
Huntley.
Chet Huntley, yeah. That's
Chet Huntley.
Back in the day. I don't know about an athlete, Chet. I'm going to have to look that one up. All right, John McLean just around the corner, Hall of Fame columnist. Again, Paul's top 5 in about a half hour or so. Garrett Ross running the mothership. Emery Winter will dial up 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 tonight on the CW. And then also Jack McKenzie rolling along, the mad scientist of 365 Sports. This is 365 Sports, and just around the corner, John McLean. Back in a moment. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marco's Pizza, owned by, in the Waco area, Bob Mock. 5 locations. There was just a handful of years ago, nothing. A lot of pizza places, no Marco's. Fastest growing pizza brand in the country. And that's why there's all of a sudden from none to 5, and wherever you might be, maybe there's more than that. Marco's Pizza, go online to order what you want. They'll deliver. You can pick it up. And there's some discount codes for various things from pizza, salads, wings, soft drinks, and even more. And on top of that, Marco's Pizza, pizza lovers get it. My favorite is the pepperoni and sausage magnifico. I always like thin crust. I just always have. And that is loaded up, every space of that pie, with pepperoni, and then also with Italian sausage, and I love Italian sausage. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marcos.com.
It's Ram Truck Month at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2024 Ram 1500 Lone Star with 0% for 72 months. Don't miss out on this incredible deal. Hurry in today and drive home in the truck of your dreams, only at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? by not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference, and that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Couple of notes. There's always a story or two that I might have for 3 or 4 days. Paul, you gave me this one. We'll do about the NFL broadcast team on CBS, that in a second. But there was also this story. Bill Dingspeed with what might have been the best tweet today or text.
Excuse me, what's his name?
Dingspeed.
Bill
Dingspeed.
Bill Dingspeed? Am I the only one that's catching on that?
No,
Is it coincidental?
I got that.
Building speed.
Building speed.
Oh, okay. New Nike slogan, just redo it.
Just redo it.
Very nice. And then Christopher Hooter, why is the 2019 the cutoff for the back pay lawsuit? Again, it's all about statute of limitations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
All
a
right.
statute of
What did I say?
limitation. It's going back to the Alston case, and it encompasses the athletes that were in school from 2019 and beyond, because that coincides with the Alston ruling and it makes them eligible, whereas statute of limitations prior to that, you'd have to go back, the entire history of college football, and that would be $1 trillion bill. If that was, we wouldn't even be talking about the other stuff. We'd be talking about the death of it for sure. But legally, that's what that is. So yeah, it only encompasses that group of athletes, and that's a legal thing. That's nothing else other than an actual legal thing.
O'Bannon's lawsuit was settled in 2015. That led eventually to what is NIL because of the value of your name. With what was it, EA Sports, and then you had the Alston suit that was 2021, and then there is the statute of limitations. There's a story about the Arena Football League, and I read that, I was like, no, not again. The Arena Football League, I reported this, received a DM from an anonymous source. Been in camp for 3 weeks with no pay and trainer not at practice. We were promised apartments and food. Arrived at a Super 8 hotel in Jersey surrounded by prostitution and hard drugs. Meals were scarce. We were told we had insurance and workers' comp for 3 weeks. Never did. Tuesday this week, we were told to put up all of our items in a room for the weekend while we traveled. The day of the travel, we were kicked out of the hotel, told the AFL owed them $25,000, and they haven't paid. And then when they left and came back, all of the stuff that was in the hotel was gone because, of course, the hotel cleaned out the rooms and moved on. And these leagues keep on popping up, and I hope this one survives.
Well, I think the UFL has maybe killed this, and that now what are you going to do? The Arena League is the lowest you go on the professional thing. And if there's more leagues where you can get a better shot at the NFL, then that means that I'm going to try to go to the UFL or the CFL before I would go to the Arena League. And so I think that their talent is dwindling with the advent of the spring football leagues. And it was a cool thing while it lasted. I just don't know how much, steam it really has.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that it was cool for its time period, but it hasn't been cool for a really long time, and it hasn't been relevant for a really long time. And I don't think you've ever mentioned the Arena League one time on this show until now. So
I probably didn't, unless it was a former player that maybe did something. But I haven't. Not the Arena League. No,
I also know this.
Maybe the Canadian Football League.
It's always handy to actually read the comments on some of these stories, because then you would see a lot of former Arena players going,
"Yep,
yeah," and so that's what it was when we were in there in '97 and crack house like hotels and iffy pay and no refreshments and orange slices when we got done with practice. And yeah, that was the reaction I mostly saw, was former Arena League players, which was never a glorious thing to begin with. Like Kurt Warner gets glorified, but not because of Arena League, but because he made it from that to the NFL. Other than that, we'd never
we would
know the guy.
Yep.
But yeah, it's not for for those thinking that they're going to be living the high life. That is not what that league has ever been about. And so I'm surprised it's even still around at this point. And, yeah, its days might be numbered if you're starting to get more people out there complaining about it. And it may just not be desirable for folks any longer because they do have the other option now.
It's filtered down, and there's all these other leagues that pop in and out. Who was the quarterback, Paul, that got hurt that Kurt Warner had a chance to start?
Trent Green.
Yep, with the Rams.
Trent Green.
Dick Vermeil was the head coach. Who was the offensive? Mike Martz, offensive coordinator, and they were unbelievable with the receivers, and of course Kurt Warner was a hell of a story. All right, the CBS NFL team, Hall of Famers. No, but this story this is not a surprise. Phil Simms won a Super Bowl with the Giants, and Boomer Esiason, who played in a Super Bowl with the Bengals, have been on that pregame show forever. They're both out. And Matt Ryan, recently retired quarterback, is now on set with them for their game days on Sunday. I've always thought the CBS compared to Fox, and it may be the cameras, it might be the setup, but I always thought they were kind of vanilla, and that Fox with Jimmy and Bradshaw, who's like the crazy uncle, but still won 4 Super Bowls. And then obviously with Howie Long and Michael Strahan, they were just always, it was better. For some reason, that was the pregame show that I would watch.
Because you're an NFC fan.
Maybe that was the case. Maybe that was the case, but I just think that was always a show that just had a little bit more. Kurt Menefee, of course, used to work in Dallas. Great dude in hosting that show, too.
But Fox did that on purpose, though, too. Like, when it was NBC or CBS, like, when they were, they said, okay, our pregame show is going to be different, and everything that we do is going to be different. And they were on a mission to kind of innovate things. Look, Scorebug was them. Like, all the different things that you see, like, all of that was them. And so they were like, yes, let's put all these crazy people in a room. And you see, like, now, look, after them, the NBA on TNT has done the same thing, and they're fantastic. CBS they were always like, well, we're going to be, and that's CBS as a company, right? When was the last, just show on CBS that you thought, like, well, this is really pushing the envelope here? Like, I could go into CBS right now and do, like, we could play an improv game, and I could pull NCIS, and any gosh darn city, and they'd be like, or CSI.
They have 60
and
minutes.
They'd be like, NCIS Baltimore. Oh, we haven't done Baltimore. Yep. Oh, NCIS Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Like, well, we'll figure out how to make it work.
Does it get good ratings?
Yeah, it does. Just cancel NCIS Hawaii. Yeah. But, that's what they do. So they're less risk-taking than a lot of them.
Well, that's still the old school network of back in the day.
And that's why.
And it might be getting them in trouble at times.
But, Matt Ryan brings a new personality to you, matting him to the desk all the time. J.J. Watt is a fun guy, and he's not every week. He's part-time, but putting him there changes it. And then you have that new dynamic that you want. Well, the other problem with Phil Simms and Boomer Esiason is they look too much alike. Yeah, so they have to sit them on opposite sides of the table.
How dare you say all white people look alike?
All blonde quarterbacks from the 80s apparently do. Yeah. Because Boomer,
they definitely have a resemblance.
Boomer and Phil look a lot alike. And so if you don't constantly put their name up and you go, okay, well, that's Boomer and that's Phil. Plus, it's just sometimes you need to churn the roster. They've had good...
those guys have been on there for a long time. I mean, that's fine. I won't miss Phil Simms. I actually have an appreciation for Boomer based on his New York radio show.
Okay.
He does probably one of the most popular, if not the most popular, sports radio shows in America on regular radio. And I know it's always brought up in the awards. His co-host has fluctuated in recent years. But I think he does a solid job on that show, and it actually made me appreciate him a bit more. I was never a Boomer Esiason fan, but I just listened to him talk for a while, and I'm like, okay, I can see the appeal here. And obviously it's, a big hit in New York City. That says something, that says something when you're a big hit there, no matter what you're doing. So, it's just freshening up. And J.J. Watt, I've seen a little bit of his analyst stuff. I think that he'll be good. I know our next guest can certainly shed some light on that. I'm not over the moon about Matt Ryan. I need to see more of him. But I'm more of a Fox guy anyway, so I don't think this changes my viewing habits too much. But I do think Boomer is a great radio host when I've had time to catch him.
All right, John McLean, Hall of Fame columnist with us. NFL draft is over as they move on now eventually to whatever else is on the schedule next, which would be workouts, et cetera, and that's changed too. John, thank you very much. What storyline or five, with all of your insight and knowledge, was the one or two that came out to you the most?
The biggest to me is the biggest to everybody was the Falcons taking Michael Penix with the 8th pick, which is the worst move I've seen in my 48 years covering the draft. Has nothing to do with Penix, everything to do with Kirk Cousins. And there's just so many reasons it doesn't work. If assuming Cousins is healthy and Michael Penix Jr. turns 24 in May, and even the GM, Terry Fontenot, said, well, if he doesn't play for 4 or 5 years, that's a good thing for us. And I'm thinking, I feel terrible for Penix to be drafted there, because Cousins signed that 4-year contract worth $180 million, including $90 million guaranteed, $62.5 million guaranteed this year. Arthur Blank, I think, is 82, and the reason he wanted them to pay whatever it took to get Cousins, he wants to win now. He wants to win the NFC South to dethrone the Buccaneers, and they're favored to do it. But then they could have their choice of any defensive player for a pass rush that's been basically awful and hasn't had a legitimate pass rusher since defensive end John Abraham in the early 2000s, and they had their choice of all of them. And I wonder, what are the odds that Fontenot will still be the GM when he plays, and Raheem Morris will still be the head coach, because they just fired Arthur Smith after 3 years. And then they invite controversy. If Kirk Cousins throws 2 interceptions in a game, or if he throws one in the end zone when they got a chance to win, fans and media are going to howl for Michael Penix Jr., and that's the kind of distraction the team doesn't need. And the other one was the Cowboys running back situation. And I can't imagine they think that Zeke Elliott's going to come in there and do for them now what he did in 2016 through 2020. And maybe Dowdle's going to go to the Hall of Fame, but I was reading this week about them going to use running back by committee. And when you do that, usually it means you don't have one. And there was a lot of talk about Jonathan Brooks, and I think there was so much talk about Brooks and the Cowboys, the Panthers traded up ahead of them so they could draft Brooks. But it just puts more pressure on Dak Prescott, on his shoulders. And to me, he needs a running game to help take off some of that pressure.
John, the Cowboys seem to be doing this all backwards right now. And you listen to Jerry Jones talk, and it feels like he thinks he's outsmarted the rest of the league. But what do you think this means? I mean, look, if they don't win, Mike McCarthy's gone. All these things are going to change. They still need to get Dak done. And there's this thought that maybe he's going to push it and see if they don't get a new quarterback. Does it seem like Jerry, after a while of being pretty steady and the Cowboys of building their roster, are going on to kind of old school, throwing it against the wall and seeing if it works?
Well, that's not a formula that's tried and true, of course, Paul. And it's almost like they know some things we don't know about their talent, that some back is going to emerge, that the players they lost can be replaced. I think if he gets Prescott signed and he gets to see Lamb signed, people will be happy, and he's not going to let Micah Parsons get away. But if I'm Dak and I'm thinking, okay, this time next year, any team that needs a quarterback, I can be available to him. And it's going to be very tempting for him to test the market. On the other hand, I'm sure he loves Dallas, sure he loves the Cowboys. But does he believe that, say, Jerry and Steven are the problem when it comes to procuring players? Because he certainly doesn't believe he's the problem when they lose in the playoffs. But that's going to be so interesting. I still think
they'll get it done. And it's going to cost them a lot of money. But right now, there just doesn't seem any rhyme or reason behind this offseason. I love they're drafting the linemen, but this was a deep draft for running backs, not in the first round, but starting in the second and really in the third, fourth, and even the fifth. And I just think they could have used one of them.
John, the Texans with a solid draft from all indications, but I'll reserve judgment to you because you obviously study this much closer. There wasn't a lot of in the way of splashes this go round for Houston, but what did you think of what they were able to get done with their numerous picks?
They had 9 picks. They drafted 5 defensive, 4 offensive. They love to draft guys who are captains. And they say it's not a criteria, but they do like it if the guy's a captain because it shows what his teammates think about his leadership. Kamari Lassiter, the corner from Georgia, was a 2-time captain, 2-time national champion. He can play inside or outside. And every player Nick Caserio drafts is someone DeMeco Ryans wants. So if DeMeco thinks I got to have Kamari Lassiter over some of these other corners, I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt. Now, I thought they'd take a defensive tackle with the other pick in the second round, and they took an offensive tackle, which surprised me, a redshirt sophomore from Notre Dame, Blake Fisher. And I don't think he'll play this year unless somebody gets hurt, but he could be starting next year. And then he took a safety, Callum Bullock, from USC, 6'2", 188, who ran in the 4.4s. They need a guy playing with Jalen Petrie at some point who can cover a lot of ground and play deep and let Petrie work the middle of the field, play around the line of scrimmage, blitz a little bit. And one of the things they did on their last, 6 picks, they were all in college at least 5 years, and one of them was in college 6 years. So they think if you're playing at a big-time program, and Nick Caserio has never drafted a player from a non-Power 5 conference. And if you think all that experience will help their transition to the NFL, that's something they believe in. And boy, they took everybody. You know, I love the NFL draft when it's over because we don't see one and dones. You know, you see one and dones like he's Missy. He's probably gonna get pushed all over the D League because he's just not strong. He needs to add weight and strength, and he could have used another year of playing major college basketball. And so many guys who are one and done don't pan out. And so I like the way the NFL today that you can have 3 years of experience and still just be a redshirt sophomore when you come into the draft.
So the Cowboys had that philosophy, and I'm not sure if other teams did too, drafting guys from Michigan, Bama, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma. But they went into the Western. Well, now who's the defensive end they got this year?
Marshawn Kneeland.
Yeah, where'd he go?
Western Michigan.
Western Michigan. But that's not a bad idea, unless it's just somebody that jumps off the map at you when it comes to a player that you're going to get drafted. What are your thoughts about how Detroit showed up in droves with a huge crowd during the 3 days with the NFL draft?
And by the way, I thought the Kneeland pick was really good because he was very highly rated. Cowboys did great along their fronts. It's just that the others are suspect. As far as Detroit, they did a great job. That city's been down and out so many times. And the fact that it's the place to be now, they got very lucky with the weather. The first night the media was in there, second night on Wednesday, it get down to 40. But it was great. Didn't rain, didn't snow, and it was just a great show. And that Lions blue, that powder blue, you know, it shows from the drone shots and everything. And I thought it just looked great. And they used to be commended. And I don't know how in the world they ever have an estimate about how many people are actually there. Whatever they say is fine. I love the way they're going to rotate it around now. Can't wait to see it in Green Bay, and have no idea where they're going to be able to put it, but it's going to be fun. And I hope sometime they put it in Canton. Canton, Ohio's got a lot of places you can put the draft, and originally I didn't like the idea of rotating it out of New York. I used to go to New York every year for it. It was a great time. thought it would be a disaster. It's just like everything the NFL does when it comes to promotion. It works big time.
John, your wife and Garrett and Smokey and Craig's beloved Washington Commanders had the first draft in the post-Snyder era, and it's the first draft since Daniel Snyder that I think there's like legitimate top-to-bottom optimism in. What did you think about what they did?
There should be. Mm-hmm. There's no way people couldn't be fired up about that, Paul, beginning with quarterback Jaden Daniels. They hope they're not picking there anymore. They added to their defensive line, and they've gotten rid of a couple of those their best linemen because they couldn't pay everybody. But they got receivers, they got defensive linemen, they got running back, and they've got to give him a chance to develop. But man, if I'm a Commanders fan, I'm pumped, and I know they eat up all that positive publicity because they're still trying to get a new stadium, hopefully in the district, and I hope they do because it was nothing like RFK Stadium.
John, how did you watch the draft?
It was the first time in 48 years since I left the Waco Tribune-Herald to come to the Chronicle to cover hockey, and then when I moved over to the Oilers, that I have not been at the Oilers headquarters, the NFL, or the Texans headquarters at NRG Stadium. And the reason was I was in the hospital the week before with pneumonia, and I just didn't want to go over there, spend all 6 hours a day around a bunch of people in a confined space.
Yeah.
So it's the first time I was able to watch it. Carol went somewhere, and I was in constant front of the TV. And I used to love to want to hear what's on TV, but you couldn't because people were trying to talk all the time. So I just kept switching back between the two. I actually like the NFL Network better because Daniel Jeremiah is my favorite analyst. So I thought it was great. I don't know if I'll ever go again. I covered it, and then I wrote about it, and then I did all my talk shows. So it was a blast being able to kind of be a fan right there and watch it with everybody else.
I'm with you. We had a good run of going to the draft, but after a few of them, and then I remember Philadelphia, you couldn't even see the stage, and like just some of that kind of stuff happened. So yeah, it's actually I'd imagine for you a nice break. I was curious if you saw much of Bill Belichick on the McAfee broadcast, or if you saw much of Nick Saban on the College Game Day broadcast. I thought both were excellent, and just to think that we have both of those minds now that are going to be relaxed and free and loose and commenting on their areas of expertise, I think that's going to be pretty special. I'm not a big media fan, but I do think that was pretty cool seeing those guys do their thing on the broadcast.
Craig, I watched both of them. I've always liked Saban because we knew Saban was going to be on ESPN when he retired because he was on there so much. He understood the value of being on ESPN and Pat McAfee's show because so many young people watch it, so many parents watch it, and it always helped him recruit. And I knew Belichick was going to be good. A lot of people didn't think he would because they only seen standing up in front of the media with the Patriots when he's awful. But I've been around him like on the Centennial Pro Football Hall of Fame committee. I was one of 10 from our selection committee on there with people like Bill Belichick, John Madden, and Gil Brandt and Bill. And on our Friday conference calls, he was outstanding. And then when we went to Canton for 2 days before we picked that Centennial Committee candidates, he was outstanding. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And so there was a 30 for 30 one time or an NFL Network show. It was with Saban and Belichick just talking football. I would love to see those guys talking football anytime I could.
Yeah, I thought that was Monday when we went on the air, I said, who was the star of the show in the NFL draft? And, of course, you could think of players or even a team. There's no question Saban had me locked in. And I even went back and watched more clips of him. I've always enjoyed him. He was fantastic. And the Belichick with a sense of humor that most people never had a chance to see.
One of the things about Saban, I'm looking at him and his coloring. He's got his tan, and his hair was almost the color of his tan. And they put him in the power chair in the middle where he should be because he's Nick Saban. And I kept looking. I always like to look at those guys' hair, their makeup, and everything else. And but I love the idea of College Game Day being there. I thought that was a real coup because I try to watch College Game Day every week because I learn more about college football from watching those guys for 3 hours every week. And but Belichick's going to be a star too if he wants to be. And I feel bad for him that didn't get another head coaching job. But I think if he wants to do that full time, I'm guessing he doesn't. Tell me he's making $20 million a year. When's he going to start spending some of it? And but I'd love to see both of them as much as possible. I think it'd be tremendous. Bring in Belichick a few times a year, put him on the College Game Day panel with Saban, and just everybody else keep quiet. I don't think Pat McAfee could do that. No. But, man, can you talking about two guys that could be the best voices, not just in college football, but football.
Yeah, I think it's going to be awesome having Saban a part of Saturdays and then Belichick doing what he does on Sundays. It's going to be a real treat. As it typically happens, there's already like a 2025 mock draft that's easily found, and I know it's way too early for all of that, John, but I wanted to ask you about Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, there's a lightning rod with that last name and just kind of the Colorado program in general. He's a good player. I don't know that he's anywhere close to great yet, but he obviously has, at least some attention NFL-wise ongoing and a year to play. But I don't know. There was a former player that did a piece with The Athletic and said that when Deion was telling him that he should enter the transfer portal, that this player got tears in his eyes and he was mad and he felt like they never really tried to get to know him, that program, and that Deion was destroying people's confidence and their belief in themselves, and that they simply could have handled it with more compassion. And Shedeur quote tweets it and says, "I don't even remember him, to be honest. Bro had to be mid at best," about this former player. Is that something that NFL scouts will pick up on as far as like a leadership thing, or does that matter at all what a random tweet says, a year out from getting drafted?
It's a body of work, and Shedeur Sanders is not going to be for everybody. How many players go over and wave their Rolex watch in the faces of opposing fans after a game? How many people have a Rolex watch to wave? That kid, everything that comes out of his mouth can turn off a lot of people. And just like his dad, but he seems to be going to great lengths. He's a great player. Hopefully they get better talent around it next year and get some linemen in there. But as far as him, early mock draft being number one, what was it, 3 years ago when Spencer Rattler was number one after his red shirt his freshman year at Oklahoma? So many things can go wrong. But I tell you what, there's some teams, they'll never say this, of course, but they're not going to like his antics. I've never seen a quarterback do the kind of things that he's done to rub people's faces in it, teammates in it. I can't believe his dad had lassoed him in a little bit to say, "Son, okay, your future's at stake now. You might think about cooling some of that stuff. Focus on the season and get ready for the next level."
Yeah, that there'll be some teams with a red flag on that. The talent does trump the red flag. We saw that with T'Vondre Sweat, who got picked in the second round with thoughts it might go into the weekend after the DUI. But Shedeur can play. But yeah, that just is, to me, that whole thing is just it's not necessary. It's just why say that?
His daddy didn't even do those kind of things that he's doing, and I can't believe Deion doesn't step in and show the kind of leadership the head coach should. And because next season, it's going to be his last season and everybody's expecting him to be the first pick, and he's got the ability, start acting like a guy who's picked first overall.
John, thank you very much. John McLean, Hall of Fame.
Thank you, guys. Second Bears.
Hall of Fame member, also voter in the NFL and a part Baylor, Waco trip, all that.
Yeah, I do think you need to and keep in mind with T'Vondre Sweat, nobody died, so nobody cares in the NFL.
Yeah,
I mean, let's not pretend like a DUI is a big deal in the NFL. That is not going to stop a player of a certain talent.
Radar,
That is not a fireable offense in any way unless there is a Henry Ruggs type of situation. So,
or there was a background of him having issues like that.
If it's
that
like his third one, then
Yeah.
you go like, I'm not drafting this guy. He's clearly an extreme alcoholic and can't stop operating motor vehicles. But yeah, like the fact that even more than 30 seconds was spent in general on T'Vondre Sweat's draft status was a waste of time because he was always going to be fine so long as you perform well. And so, yeah, that's the NFL. We need to.
That's a great point. What happened with the former tech or the player that ran into him?
He casually hit the portal.
Yeah,
okay, that
quite
was
casually.
The story was there, but it was there, and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
he's gone. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd want T'Vondre Sweat playing for my football team, but like ours, and that is ours, Garrett and Craig.
Oh, yeah.
They have Jonathan Allen, right? And they've got some defensive linemen. The problem is they don't have anything else.
They got Johnny Newton in the draft, and that dude is
kid from Illinois,
monster.
Illinois?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Aaron Donald 2.0, I think.
What? Really?
Yeah.
They didn't really
freaking
need
good.
a bunch of D linemen like they had set up these last couple of years. Something had to give with contracts and just
they're all
your distribution of your money was like 85% on your D line. It's like, hey, great D line, but you can't still stop anybody, and so
You can't score at all.
Can't score. Like it doesn't really do you any good to have like 4 or 5 monsters up front, all getting set or already getting paid high dollars. So yeah, That is still a promising position. They just needed to shed a little bit in the way of Chase Young and Montez Sweat and those guys. But yeah, I like that pick as well, Paul. So I like what they did.
Who's the other defensive lineman they have that's so good that it was a college, but also was another Alabama guy besides Jonathan Allen? No, Deron Payne. Yeah, Deron Payne. All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina. What's it about, Paul?
It is the top 5 mid-round picks.
All right, top 5 mid-round picks in the NFL draft. This is 365 Sports. Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans. I didn't get a chance to go by there today. I was going to try. Had a chance to play golf thanks to Jimmy Cunningham. Art Strickland, Ridgewood Country Club put on a hell of a show. And man, is that renovation just beautiful. I saw it back in October, and I saw it again firsthand today. But I was going to drop by Don's Humidor because I needed some gummies. My Vita Dreams, down to the last couple gummies that I take in the evening, an hour or so before I think I'm going to probably end up going to bed. If you toss and turn at night, and it could be, there's a lot of reasons, even if you take a Vita Dream, but let's say you have some financial issues, something personal, health-related, just a lot on your minds, a Vita Dream gummy, 1, 2, or however you decide you're going to take, will help maybe just calm you down a little bit. You fall asleep, you don't toss and turn, you save an hour or a half hour of sleep. Think about that when the alarm goes off in the morning. Damn, I wish I had another 30 minutes. You hit snooze 2 or 3 times. Vita Dreams will help you fall asleep and comfortably too. They also have the 48-foot walk-in humidor with all the great brands of cigars. Rocky Patel's my favorite, but they have the one that you want. Carol, Ashley, and Cheyenne. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwood Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLean County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into the Top 5, presented by Texas Beef House. Today, Top 5 mid-round draft picks. Let's get into it. Number 5, Javon Baker, wide receiver, UCF. The Patriots took him in the 4th round at number 114. Only thing about Javon Baker that prevented him from going in the first 2 rounds is that his top-end speed maybe isn't the best, but he's got good get off the line. He fights people. He is going to be a really good NFL receiver, and it's another weapon for Drake May, and tremendous value here in the 4th round at number 114. Someone that a lot of people had their eye on, someone we talked to at Big 12 Pro Day in Dallas, or in Frisco, a couple of months ago. Really, really underrated player, and someone who climbed up the charts and really I thought was going to go earlier. Number 4, Sione Vaki, safety, running back with the Lions, 4th round, number 132. Look, if there's a dude who bites kneecaps in this draft, it is Sione Vaki. And who is the team that claims to bite kneecaps? It's the Detroit Lions. And whether he's a safety, a running back, a special teamer right off the bat, he'll be excellent at it and brings a lot of value in the kick return game with the new kick return rules. His personality will fit with Dan Campbell. It will fit with Aaron Glenn. And look, if he winds up in that running back room that's already really talented, then it's going to fit there too. Whatever Sione Vaki does with the Lions, it's a fit and a steal in the 4th round at number 132. Had he come back for another year, you're talking about a 1st or 2nd round pick, but he was ready to go. Number 3, Anthony Gould, wide receiver, Oregon State. The Colts got him in the 5th round at number 142. This is an instant kick returner and punt returner for you. Speed, speed, speed. Now look, they did draft Adonai Mitchell in the 2nd round, and that was a great pick, but this gives them a wide receiver depth chart that is Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, Adonai Mitchell, and Anthony Gould, and that is speed, power, whatever you need. They've got guys who can run all over the place and do a lot of different things. Plus now you add a lethal kick returner from Oregon State and Anthony Gould to the roster. Cannot say enough about this pick right here. Really liked it and really like what his potential is with that Colts offense and special teams. Number 2, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., linebacker, Clemson. I'm going to take a moment and take out my phone, which is over there. Jack, would you please bring me my phone? I had different things in my pockets than my phone. Jack McKenzie, ladies and gentlemen. Jack sent me this message earlier today, and it will encapsulate what I am saying. This is from QB Factory. The Cowboys won the NFC title in 1995. The following offseason, Jeremiah Trotter was drafted, made 4 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pros, played in the Super Bowl, had a child. Watched that kid grow up,
be an All-American and get drafted by the same team he was drafted by, the Philadelphia Eagles, all before the Cowboys ever got back to a conference title game. That's how good of a pick Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is. He was sired, grew, all of this in his life. He's never seen the rival team make it to the conference title game. They got this guy in the 5th round. And I will tell you, by watching him at Clemson, this is not a 5th-round player. This is a 3rd-round player. They got an absolute steal on him. And he was drafted after the Cowboys drafted a linebacker who most people had ranked lower than him in Maris Liafu from Notre Dame. This guy's a monster. He's a chip off the old block. And the Eagles got him as kind of one of their throwaway picks at number 155. If you'll forgive me, I'm going to pause and cry for a minute because the Cowboys, it would have been great to see Jeremiah Trotter Jr. have to cheer for his son in the Cowboys. He was a Redskin and an Eagle. This is terrible. And number 1, TJ Tampa, cornerback, Iowa State, another Big 12 guy. Maybe I've got a bit of a slant, Garrett. I don't know. But a great kid.
He deserves it.
Yeah. Absolutely could have gone way earlier and then just maybe got caught up in it because he's not like a burner, but a big guy does not allow a lot of passes to be completed. Look at these long arms here and look at the Ravens. At 130, finding a player of need, cornerback is a need for them who fits their system really well. They can play him inside. They'll probably play him outside. He can do a lot of things, plus help out on special teams. This is a Ravens special right here, getting a guy who can be a productive player for you pretty much off the bat on special teams and in nickel packages right away with TJ Tampa and getting him in the 4th round at pick number 130. Best value pick of the draft right here, TJ Tampa, cornerback, Iowa State. That's going to do it for the top 5. We're back to wrap it up. Have a great week, everybody.
All right, Paul Catalina and his new toy. The old screen, the flat screen behind you, like a weatherman.
Yeah, I know. I'm enjoying it.
No, use it.
Yeah.
Use it. Garrett Ross, thank you, sir. Emery Winter, appreciate Emery. Again, he's dialing up the segments for 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the local CW. Also, Jack McKenzie and Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. Thank you who watch and listen to us. Hit the like and subscribe button. Spread the word if you don't mind. We're back at 1 tomorrow, triple option, 3 until 6 with this show. I'm David Smoak. Thank you to our great sponsors. Every day we are here for you, and thank you. Good night.